Thank you for being here. We know you've got many, many choices to make every single morning, and we are always so very, very grateful that you choose to spend some time with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy Monday, August the 18th, 2025, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We got a lot to talk about. As you know, we are crowdfunded here. You want to support the channel, you can do so. The various things are out there at Factsstillmatter. There's a gifting goal today. We are still on our backup. We'll get our main back tomorrow, but it's about halfway through the show. So we'll be on our backup one more day tomorrow, and then back to the main account on Wednesday. If you don't follow me here, please consider doing so. Programming note, later this week on Thursday, we'll go back to the original plan to interview Dr. Will Boyd, who's running for governor of Alabama. That interview will be this Thursday. Working on a couple of other events that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks as well. I want to quickly just thank some folks. I don't know if I got to thank everybody on Friday for your kindness and your generosity. As again, we are crowdfunded. Rainey Ray, thank you so much, Rainey. Stacy, to Brett, to Alicia, you guys are amazing. If I missed you on Friday, my apologies for that. So thank you for your support. Glad you guys are here. Discord, join the Discord. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring, liking is loving. We are on the backup, which means we need all of your help to get out the FYP. Speaking of the FYP, I wanted to talk about a little bit before we get into our show today. I want to talk a little bit about TikTok's new community guidelines, which are coming out next month. I think it's the 13th or so of September. Myself and the best mods on TikTok, we chatted last night about it because from our perspective, I think one of the advantages that we have is that we don't do debates. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. It's just one of those kinds of things that that's sort of our sweet spot. So we don't have to worry as much about the shouting, the yelling, and the screaming, although it does happen. The thing that's got me a little bit concerned is there's a lot of ambiguity and vagueness when it comes to the specifics. But I will say this: I would just ask everybody, if you can't confirm something, if you come into the live, I bring up in the guest box, if you make comments in the chat and you can't confirm it, please don't post it. I would like to ask that you just be very, very mindful. We're going to really try. I think TikTok is really looking out for misinformation. Case in point, I usually when my account does get taken down, I usually win the appeal almost immediately. And I went back and I did a little test, and the last 10 community guidelines violations that I got, which brought the account down, 8 of the 10 were for misinformation, but I immediately won the appeal, which means that there was no misinformation determined, with the exception of the last one. Same deal. So I would just ask everybody just to be very, very mindful, please, and just let's try to avoid as much riffraff as possible. I know we can't control everything. I've asked our mods to be out ahead of it as best possible. So just please be mindful. TikTok is going to be looking out for things regarding elections. We've got some breaking news to talk about that in just a moment. They are really going to be focusing on conspiracy theories, which they should. To me, the biggest issue is the ambiguity and the vagueness, specifically as it relates to some of the categories. So we'll be mindful. So again, we'll all work together here, and I think a lot of left-leaning creators are the ones that are under attack, because I've been in some right-wing spaces, and the shit that they get away with in there without any repercussions is crazy. And then here, somebody might make a statement in the chat and our live gets taken down, but whatever, I'm not complaining. So just be mindful of that, friends. Okay, everybody keep tapping and clapping. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring, liking is loving. Thank you very much. Speaking of elections, this just came down on live social, True Social this morning, 7:17 a.m. Eastern Time. This is from the president. Again, breaking news. It's a long one. I am going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines, all caps, which cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster and leaves no doubt at the end of the evening as to who won and who lost the election. We are now the only country in the world that issues mail-in voting. That is just blatantly false. There are over 30 countries, by the way, including Russia, uses mail-in ballots to some degree. A flat-out lie. We are the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. All others gave it up because of the massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before, by signing an executive order to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. This I want people to keep this in mind, okay? This is exactly how afraid Republicans are of you, the voter. This is example number one as to how afraid they are. We thought the gerrymandering and the whole bullshit redistricting Texas and other states now, but this tells you everything you need to know about how petrified they are of you, the voter, okay? We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats, not just by Democrats, but by independents and also by non-MAGA Republicans who are sick of your bullshit, by signing an executive order to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. Remember, the states, this part, friends, remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. Again, a flat-out bullshit lie. Every state in our country runs their own elections the way that they seem fit, however it was presented to their legislative body, thus their voters. That's how they run their elections. Each state does it their own way. So now, apparently, states are just agents of the federal government. But I guess states' rights be damned? Okay, just checking. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. With their horrible radical left policies like open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender and woke for everyone, and so much more, Democrats are virtually unelectable without using this completely disproven mail-in scam. This entire section is all caps. Elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots or voting, and everybody, in particular the Democrats, know this. I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are completely a complete and total disaster must end now. Remember, without fair and honest elections and strong and powerful borders, you don't even have a semblance of a country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. There's fascism for you, friends. Yeah, I'm sure, exactly, Cookie. I'm sure he's just telling a joke, right? He's just kidding around. Real quick, this is, again, it's funny that I've been talking about when he uses caps as an attempt to get emphasis, and then you see Gavin Newsom. By the way, I'm going to go through Gavin Newsom's sort of scrapbook of all the great things that he said through his press office X account. But these are all the things in this particular bullshit diatribe that he said in all caps. Mail-in ballots, voting machines, no doubt, won, lost. Massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before. Executive order, honesty for the good of our country, horrible radical left policies, scam elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots or voting. In particular, the Democrats know this. I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are a complete and total disaster must end now. Remember, without fair and honest elections and strong and powerful borders, you don't even have a semblance of a country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump. The statement above, we are the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. Now, we know that our friends on the right won't bother to do any research at all. So this just came down at 7:17 this morning. So our crack team, the best minds in the business, went out and found the fact that there are over 30 countries, in fact, that use mail-in ballots, including some that you might remember. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. The US, Switzerland, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Canada, France, Mexico, India, and you know what? Even Russia. A very narrow absentee provision, tightly controlled, but they use it as well. So the thing is, let me just finish this thought. So I also was curious. Okay, if they're claiming fraud, so let's talk about it. Is there really fraud? Is there really fraud in mail-in ballots? Okay, so I just pulled this information. This was studied by Reuters through an MIT study. Okay, a 20-year study by MIT found that mail-in ballot fraud to be exceedingly rare, only around 0.0000006%, 5 zeros, of ballots nationwide. And in Oregon's all mail-in elections, a minuscule 0.000004%, which is actually, you're 5 times more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to find evidences of fraud in mail-in voting. Okay? Everybody tap like crazy, because this conversation is one of those things that I think TikTok's on the lookout for. So please consider gifting. Please consider tapping and clapping. Please consider engaging in the live, whatever that might be as we get through this. I'm going to do my best to navigate here, but this is all breaking news. Between 2000 and 2012, there were 491, again, 12 years, 491 known cases of absentee mail-in voting fraud, an extremely rare number considering there were billions of ballots cast in all types of elections. One analysis estimated just 372 potentially fraudulent mail-in ballots out of 14.6 million cast in the 2016 presidential and 2018 midterms, an equivalent of 0.00025%. It is, without question, an extremely secure system. You know what? This tells you everything you need to know, because we know mail-in ballots have advantaged Democrats. That just happens to be one of the ways that a lot of Democrats decide to vote. Okay, independents as well, and a lot of Republicans too. And don't forget, the president, the twice impeached, four-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon, also voted via mail-in ballot. Okay? This disadvantages absentee. This disadvantages the military who's serving overseas. So do we just not count them? However many members of the military that are overseas, or patriots, expats who live overseas, who are still U.S. residents, they can't vote now? So the plan is to initiate an executive order, I guess. We'll see how that goes, but more to come. Signature verification is a key security step. 31 states, election workers compare the signature on the returned envelope to the one on file. Where mismatches occur, ballots are set aside for review for what's called curing. Rejection rates vary. In 2020, less than 1% of mail-in ballots were rejected, compared to a much lower rejection rate of around 0.01% for in-person ballots where workers can assist on the spot. Less than 1%. Less than 1% in an election that he won. Common reasons for rejections include signature mismatches, less than 0.25%. Ballot arrives late, less than 0.25%, and then no signature, less than 0.25%. Notably, some states now allow ballot curing, giving voters a chance to fix errors. This reduces rejection rates. In Pennsylvania's 2024 election, counties allowing curing saw rejection rates of less than 0.25% versus slightly above 0.5% in others, cutting rejections by 17%. So the counties in Pennsylvania that offered curing for ballots saw a reduced number of inaccuracies and then still gave people the chance to vote. This, to me, should be a red flag. It's 8 a.m. and you're arguing politics. No, it's not 8 a.m. I'm not arguing politics. I'm calling out fascism. There's a difference, but thanks for playing. I don't know why anybody would be happy with this. Now, I know the alarmist mentality that is Donald Trump, because we know conservatives, and especially MAGA men, are afraid of everything. So now you're afraid of paper. Now you're afraid of filling out, putting something in an envelope, putting a stamp on it and mailing it and signing it. You're afraid of that now too. It doesn't matter, friends, what we say. We know that. It doesn't matter what we tell them about the integrity of elections. They don't care. It's fine when they win, but not when they lose. It's fine in 2024, even though there's all kinds of anomalies. That's totally fine. Many millions of them use mail-in ballots, no issues when you win, but plenty of issues when you lose, right? Let me start the flash goal. Donut. Okay. So this is something that we're going to have to watch. Apparently there's an executive order coming out. Now I want to make sure that people continue to realize that a lot of this is still a distraction, because it is. All right, there's only so much that can happen here. States are going to sue. The federal government does not control how state elections are run. They just do not. Now we have to think down the road about election certification and the whole 9 yards, but we're not there yet. Okay, our focus needs to be on what we see in front of us right now, which is 2026 midterms, overwhelming the ballot boxes, or the post office, or the mail-in service, whatever it might be, to make sure that his regime, his dictatorial regime, stops on election day in 2026. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment, but I think it's appropriate now that we're seeing this, because the expectation, at least from my perspective, is that Republicans did not think the Democrats would stand up and push back. And we're going to get into some of the classic trolling that Gavin Newsom is doing using his press office. Unbelievable. They don't expect it. So Greg Abbott's going to call another special session in Texas, and ultimately they're going to redraw their maps. And just the way in which the Republicans are using their bullshit rhetoric. While we're on that particular topic, I'm going to play some sound from Charlie Kirk. This to me is just so classic. Just the way in which he describes this. So Charlie went on. Charlie's really triggered by what California is doing, and just listen to this. And because Charlie knows the audience, and because he knows that the audience that he's speaking to, not exactly very well informed, I'm being kind, are wrapped in their confirmation bias blanket, are not going to bother to look past what he says. Charlie Kirk said the truth. Yeah. So this tells you the whole story right here.
And so Gavin Newsom is going to try to call a special session to overturn the will of the voters. I thought it was all about democracy, right? It's not democracy. It's about oligarchy. And the baseline component of all of this is that the people of California, Republican and Democrat, socialist and libertarian, they don't want politicians involved in the drawing of the maps. Gavin Newsom does not care because he wants to be president more than listen to the voters of California.
Well, Charlie, here's the thing. You're wrong, because unlike what you just said, Gavin Newsom has initiated a ballot referendum, which then would allow the voters of California to determine whether or not they want to redraw the maps. Unlike what is happening in Texas, what you just described, Charlie, is what's happening in Texas. Here's that sound again.
And so Gavin Newsom is going to try to call a special session to
That's a lie. He's not calling a special session. He's calling for a ballot referendum to get the measure in front of voters and let voters decide.
Overturn the will of the voters. I thought
the will of the voters will be determined via that special election, unlike what's happening in Texas, because the voters in Texas aren't getting to decide. The Republican majority legislature is.
Was all about democracy, right?
It is about democracy, Charlie. That's right. That's what you do in a representative democracy. You allow the voters to determine their fate, right? You put it in front of the voters. And the problem with Texas and states that you like, Charlie, is that the voters there are like, we don't want this fucking bullshit. And the Republicans, the fascist regime that is Greg Hot Wheels Abbott in Texas, aren't going to allow the voters to chime in. Funny though, right?
And it's not democracy.
No, it is, Charlie. It is actually democracy. That's what democracy is.
It's about oligarchy. And the baseline component of all of this is that the people of California, Republican and Democrat, socialist and libertarian, they don't want politicians.
How do you know that, Charlie? How do you know, Charlie? How do you know that the voters don't want it? Well, you know what? The easiest way to determine what the voters actually want is to let the voters decide. So it's funny that you don't. Where's your commentary about Texas? Because what you just described is what's happening in Texas and other states. Now we know that there are other states that are going to be on. This is going to be a fight, friends. Everybody's going to redistrict this shit out of this. Donald Trump is not going to. There's no way they're going to be able to pass a law. They can't change the state. It's a distraction. I don't want you guys to get sucked up into this. I'm encouraging you. He's going to go out with a True Social post and say we're going to eliminate mail-in ballots. He can't. He can't do it. Okay, he cannot do it. Right? You're going to need state legislatures. You're going to talk about passing laws. And again, this is a complicated situation because he is expecting full-blown loyalty with this. Full-blown loyalty. Now, there are people in Republican states who do not have access to go to a mail-in or a polling location on election day. Again, what they are talking about, okay, is one day, single day paper voting. Friends, if we just use the numbers from the 2024 election, roughly 170 million people voted, right? Roughly speaking, between all across the board. We'll just say 175 million people. How do you expect to get 175 million people, including a lot of those votes that were cast absentee, expats, active duty military personnel overseas, college students, et cetera, et cetera. How do you expect to get all 175 million people to vote on one day? The answer is you can't. It is bullshit. It is a lie. It is a distraction, and it's going to work for many, many people. Do not let them continue to lie to you. You can't do it, okay? I'm going to sit up here. I'm going to remind you what's at stake. Everything, even the events, we're going to go through the horrible events that happened in Alaska last week about how our president just literally bent the knee. It's pretty embarrassing. Actually, let me put this up real quick. Yeah, the art of the kneel. Seriously? I mean, my gosh. But the whole I'm gonna sign an executive order. It's nothing. It's not worth the toilet paper he wipes his ass with. Do not get distracted, okay? It's not going to happen. The MAGA simps are going to believe it. And you know what? While they're filling out their mail-in ballot, or while their infirmed parents can't leave their house to go vote, so the only way they could vote was to use mail-in ballots. Overwhelmingly accurate. 30 countries in some shape or form use mail-in ballots. Voting machines tested for accuracy. Dominion sued Fox. Okay? Fox settled for $787 million. It is a lie. It is bullshit. They're trying to distract you. Don't let them. Stay focused. Okay? There's not a lot of new news on JE. By the way, friends, that's one of the things that I think TikTok is on the lookout for. So we're going to refer to them as the Trump files or JE or Schmaxwell, or I'll figure something out. But my mods know to kick me in the shin if I go too far down that particular road. But again, this is it's just nonsense. Okay, it is just absolute nonsense. And you notice the timing. Okay, just think about this. You notice the timing. Comes down after 3 weeks of the churn and burn regarding the Schmepstein situation. Horrible job numbers. We're going to go through the producer price index, which is a big indicator for inflation. We saw the numbers go up there last week to the highest they've been since 2022, when we had high rates of inflation coming off COVID, pushing 9%. Highest it's been since then. And then that absolute diplomatic disaster that happened in Alaska last week. And then now, Monday morning, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna tell my base, because they'll believe anything and they're stupid, that we're gonna do away with mail-in ballots, even though millions of them use mail-in ballots. But what about Biden? And you know what else you're gonna be focused on? Because I woke up in the middle of the night this morning, and there's a right-wing panel, and they're talking about what Putin said, about how Putin said, Mr. President, if you had won 2020 election, I would not have invaded Ukraine. And the right is gobbling it up. You see, President Trump was right. He told you. You guys are, without question, some of the dimmest bulbs I have ever seen. You are, once again, going to take the word of an international war criminal. Okay? Everybody keep tapping and sharing. Do not forget about our gifting goal today. So I want to speak to that. First of all, this imagery to me tells me a lot, because again, President Zelensky is going to be back in DC today, flanked by numerous members of the EU. British Prime Minister, German Chancellor, presidents of NATO, to show some support because of what happened the last time. So just look at the picture. The scolding, the absolute attempt to humiliate Zelensky in the Oval Office, and then rolling out the red carpet. Oh, and you know what? I have another picture too. I don't even know if people saw this one. This one, to me, where is it? Do I not have? Yeah, this. Ordering United States military personnel to tack down the red carpet at Putin's plane on U.S. soil, asking the U.S. military to do that. That, to me, tells us a lot. But back to this. Oops, wrong one. Still the wrong one. Here we go. So let's talk about what happened Friday. We haven't been together since then, but there's I kind of want to start with the obvious, right? The obvious juxtaposition of these two pictures. You know, you are admonishing someone whose country was attacked, while cheering on, literally applauding and stroking the hand of the aggressor. This guy under threat. This guy attempting to be embarrassed. Where's your suit? Why didn't you wear your suit? This guy gets the red carpet and gets to ride in the beast, which doesn't happen. Two things from a domestic protocol perspective, okay, that I was curious about. The home country, the leader of the home country is the person who speaks first whenever there's a press conference. That didn't happen. It was President Putin who spoke first, okay? And how many times have we seen press conferences in the past with Trump? He always takes questions. Always. He never misses a moment to take questions. He didn't take any. We're going to get into the specifics of what it is that, what happened and what didn't happen. But let's level set first, because I mentioned that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal, and he is. And I want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. Where is it, first of all? Okay. So in March of 2023, the International Criminal Court, The Hague, right, issued an arrest warrant for Putin. The charge, unlawful deportation and transfer of Ukrainian children from occupied territories to Russia during the war in Ukraine. So, and I read about this. So under international law, you cannot take children, especially children, but I believe it's all citizens. You cannot displace citizens, especially those that are in either under the pressures of war or as a result of what's happening. You cannot remove them from their country. And he did that, okay? Especially when it came to children. We're talking thousands of children. So there was an international warrant issued by the ICC to arrest the war criminal. The ICC concluded there were reasonable grounds to believe that Putin bears individual criminal responsibility. A second warrant was also issued for Maria Lvova-Belova, Russia's commissioner for children's rights, from the same court. The ICC has 124 members called states parties to the Rome Statute. Those countries are legally obligated to arrest Putin if he sets foot on their territory. Russia is not a member, and neither are several other major countries, including the US, China, India, and Israel. So interesting that the U.S. does not recognize a decision from the ICC, which is why he was not arrested on U.S. territory. But if he were to go to any one of those other 124 countries, he would have been arrested. There would have been a warrant out, which is why one of the reasons he's been so isolated. He is considered a pariah on the globe, with the exception of places like North Korea, Hungary, China, and apparently the U.S. Okay, so. An international war criminal, the United States military tacking down the red carpet, the president of the United States applauding as the international war criminal walks off the plane, and then the stroking of the hand. I don't want any MAGA simp to ever tell me again that they are a patriot. You have lost, you lost that fight years ago, but it is game over. Friends, we need 25 individual roses in the next 20 seconds. If you guys haven't given one yet, please consider doing that. It is so, exactly, Auntie, it's so disgusting and so disturbing of what we witnessed. That was an absolute embarrassment. And again, people on the right are thinking, well, that's how you negotiate. You have to support, you got to show respect. And I'm thinking, show respect? Where was the respect shown for the country that's being invaded? Where was that respect? Where was that respect shown to Volodymyr Zelensky? Is it going to be shown today? And now the right is saying, well, there's no reason for them to bring his buddies. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. They're not going to stand for that. We are seeing a change in the world order here, friends. We are witnessing it firsthand. Thank you all. We are witnessing it because the international community is first of all, is done with Putin. He is a pariah. That's why he doesn't go to other countries. Okay? That's why he doesn't go. Now, I want to remind people of a few things with this imagery that we saw from that press conference. Just within months after Ukraine was unlawfully and illegally invaded by the war criminal, Joe Biden, under the cover of darkness, with no one knowing, a very small contingent, he flew to Germany and then took a train 9.5 hours to Kyiv to meet with President Zelensky. Very, very small detail, under the cover of darkness, did not want anybody to know. That's what a fucking leader does. That's what a leader does. Yeah, the dementia ravaged Joe Biden who couldn't do shit, but apparently he could fly to Germany, hop on a train, ride 9.5 hours into a battle zone, into a war zone, the first time that's happened in like 75 years, okay? And goes and shows up and stands there in support and solidarity with Zelensky. And what does this guy do? He invites the war criminal to Alaska and then applauds him and strokes the back of his hand. That is fucking disgusting. But you guys are fine with it because you don't care. You do not care. You think that that's leadership. You think that that is how we're supposed to treat. He's not a friend. He's a liar. And all of you all now, you see, because Putin goes out and says, "Oh shit, well, if you'd won the election, I would have invaded," and you guys are believing it. Of course he's going to say that. He is using his own powers of propaganda to manipulate you, and you're falling for it. I've got some sound from the Russian media reaction. They are giddy about what happened. They got verification. He got validation from the US president. This is what he wanted. He wanted the photo op, and he got it. He wanted the photo op of US military soldiers rolling out the red carpet, and he got it. You think he was intimidated by the B-2 flying overhead? He just laughed. He just laughed. And we have the sound. You know, here's the funny part. Let me do that now. People in the safe space orbit, I guess you could call it, we're just blown away, not even sure how to recover it. And Fox not knowing what to say. There's reporting that members of the contingent, including Carol Lyon Levitt, just with these ashen looks on their face, just bewildered, like not knowing what to say, not knowing how to respond. Let me see if I can find this sound here. Where's it? Here you go. This is Jackie. What is her name? Her name is Jackie Henson. She is one of the beat reporters. She goes with the president. She's on the detail. She travels with the president, and this was her reaction.
Happened back there. It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he.
So, in her opinion, again, just her opinion, that he got steamrolled. That's the general consensus. That is the general consensus because Putin got everything he wanted. He got everything he wanted. No ceasefire, no concessions, no tough talk regarding tariffs, right? So let's just think about this for a second, okay? What does each side want in this case? Right? Three sides. What do all three sides of this trilateral discussion, what do they want? Putin wants the reunification of the USSR. Okay? He made this statement years ago, and I was curious about this, and I wanted to make sure I got the actual quote right. He said in 2005, during his annual State of the Nation address, Putin famously said, quote, "The collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. He clarified that for Russian citizens, the loss was personal and social to him. Millions of ethnic Russians suddenly found themselves outside the borders of Russia in newly independent states. He wasn't necessarily lamenting communism, but rather the loss of Moscow's power, territory, and influence. Putin has described the USSR fall as a moment when Russia's pride and sovereignty were humiliated and when Western nations took advantage of Russia's weakness. He often frames the 1990s under Boris Yeltsin as a time of, quote, chaos, poverty, and foreign exploitation." So that's what he wants. He wants the reunification of the USSR. He's told us that. He's been telling us that forever. And that's when the propaganda machine kicks in. So Russian propaganda, and again, I heard it this morning, I've watched it in the chat today, that the reason that he that he invaded Ukraine was because of NATO expansion. It's absolutely not true. It's never been true, never was true, never will be true. And you know what? He doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. Neither does our president. Neither does our Secretary of State. Neither does our Secretary of Defense. They are literally stroking the truck nuts of the Russian president. Polish, little tickle. That's what he wants. He wants the reunification of the USSR. Now, what does President Zelensky want? President Zelensky wants a free nation, a democratic nation of Ukraine. He wants to join the EU. He wants to join NATO. That's what he wants. So part of the deal that this loser attempted to implement and negotiate was Ukraine was supposed to not only give up territory in the Donbass, which is Donetsk and what's the territory? Make sure I get it right. Donetsk and Luhansk, right? He wants not only the 70% of the territory in those regions that he captured, but the offer from Trump was you can even take more if you want, even territory that has not been fought over. Okay, so here's some additional sound. Remember this, you guys? This is nuts.
Certain, strategic pieces that benefit either side are exchanged in order to make sure that they can both defend their territory successfully. So, the technical people are talking, which is good news because those are the ones that are going to say if land and what land would need to be swapped or exchanged. Certainly, I think, I took Zelensky's comments at face value, which is that no big chunks or, sections are going to be just given that haven't been fought for or earned on the battlefield.
Fought for or earned on the battlefield? Fought for or earned. So you heard it. That was Matt Whitaker, who is the United States ambassador to NATO. Fought for and earned? Fought for and earned. So an invading army headed up by the war criminal, the pet, daddy, bitch, the international war criminal who displaced children, committing horrible crimes, G-side, etc., bombing schools over the weekend after he leaves Alaska. More missile strikes, more drone strikes, more loss of innocent life. And Matt Whitaker, the U.S. ambassador to NATO, is like, well, as long as Russia earned it, they can keep it. But what about the rest? So again, 70% that they earned, and then the offer from Trump was, well, then you can have more too. And then his argument to Zelensky is going to be what today? You have to agree to those terms? It is just, for again, this is where the power of propaganda has worked so effectively on the right for years. Because he is portraying him as the victim. And he is portraying him as the aggressor. And you guys are believing it. Are there any actual patriots that exist in MAGA? Are there any? Are there any that are actually like disgusted by this? U.S. military. Again, this image is so, to me, just not enough talk about this. This picture, where is it? Did I lose it? This picture. U.S. military tacking down the red carpet so a war criminal, the same guy, by the way, who in Afghanistan put out bounties on their brothers and sisters in arms heads. That guy and the U.S. military ordered to tack down the red carpet. And you guys are cheering that on? You are literally cheering on the fact that the United States president welcomed a war criminal that would have been arrested in 124 other countries. And this, your sons or daughters up there, tacking down the carpet for the publicity stunt. Do you not care of how that looks? Oh, by the way, check that out. Stay tuned for that one later this week. Do you not care Do you not give a shit? Do you not care how absolutely disgusting that is? Your argument is you've got no argument. Again, Vladimir Putin got everything that he wanted from this trip. Everything that he wanted. Everything. He got the handshake. He got the photo op. He got to talk first. He got to go to U.S. territory. He got to sit there and stroke the ego of this guy by saying, "Oh yeah, if you'd won the election, we would not have invaded." It's everything he wanted. You could not have asked for a better moment for Russia. And what the fuck did he get other than embarrassed? He won't know. He doesn't care. He'll just hold on to that soundbite. You see, Putin, my buddy, told me that if it wasn't for if I hadn't have lost, that I would have gotten invaded. They wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. And you guys are cheering for that shit. It is mind-boggling to me that we are. No, it's not. I should say it's not mind-boggling anymore. It's just par for the course these days. Come on. Again, he's an international war criminal. We're calling for the arrest of governors in our country for what? Because you don't like it? We're calling for the militarization of our city streets because you're concerned about skateboard gangs and people throwing foot-long subs? And this is okay? I spend a lot of time trying to dissect the propaganda and the misinformation and disinformation. And I feel like I just want to put my hands up saying, I mean, this to me is just crazy. That there are people that are celebrating this. Hey, did you see Trump send the B-2? Putin's like, yeah, cool, whatever. I'm going to dog walk you here. And then their entire echo chamber sharing it. They don't even know how to respond. I've got the proof. They were scrambling, not knowing what to say, how to say it, where to say it, when to say it, why to say it, and looking for answers. And now they don't know which way to go. So let me play you some of the sound from over the weekend. And then we're going to get into Gavin Newsom, and we're still going to talk about JE and the Trump files. There's not as much new information out yet. So this is Russia State TV's reaction. But I'm going to play for you now. Hold on a second. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. And don't forget, we are crowdfunded. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so. You can find all my various pay apps at Factsstillmatter. Thank you so much. All right. Here you go. This is Russian State TV and how they're responding.
Russians are pretty happy with the way that the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska went down.
Russians are happy. Okay.
Media celebrating what they call the historic handshake between the two leaders, also noting the friendly way that President Trump received Vladimir Putin there on the tarmac in Alaska. And of course, one of the things that's also showcased by Russian media is that President Trump and Vladimir Putin rode together in President Trump's limousine, the Beast. Now, the spokeswoman for Russia's foreign ministry, she came out and said, look, the West for 3 years has been saying that Russia is isolated, and now they see President Putin.
Exactly. The West has been saying for years that he's isolated. And who opens the door to legitimacy? Our fucking president.
Putin on the red carpet on American soil. Then you have the former Russian president, and he said that he believed that big things had been achieved for Russia. First of all, he said that
again, former Russian President Medvedev saying big things have been achieved for Russia. Cool.
Threat of massive sanctions that President Trump had put out there before the summit, that seems to be off the table, at least for the time being. He also says that there seem to be mechanisms in place for talks without any sort of threats and preconditions. And most importantly for the Russians, they also say that they believe that now the negotiations process can move forward while their military operation in Ukraine also continues as well. That is, of course, the thing that Vladimir Putin has always said. He wanted not a quick ceasefire, as President Trump said he wanted before, but negotiations for a larger peace agreement in the future.
Unbelievable. Russian TV, former Russian politicians celebrating what they saw. Where are the sanctions? I've told you this from every single month since the hellacious day of January 21st, 2025. Every single month, Trump has threatened sanctions against Russia. Every single month, he has threatened it. In fact, he's gotten tough talk, shortened the 50 days down to 10 days, and nothing. Not a damn thing. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to the feedback from Russia. Real quick, let me thank Heather, thank you so much. Kate, thank you so much. Dana, thank you guys very, very much. The $2 train has been started, friends. You want to support the channel? It's a great way to do it. Appreciate you guys. All right. So now we have this backdrop of that meeting, this former meeting, and then President Zelensky is flying to DC as we speak. He may be there already. Supposed to meet later today with President Trump in the Oval Office, although I don't know where they're going to meet. Because they, unlike the Trump team, is a little bit more careful with the information that they share. I don't know if you guys heard the story, but there's reporting that where is it? That there was just information left behind. Government papers found that an Alaska hotel reveal new details of Trump-Putin summit. Okay, now I think that this story has probably taken on a bit of a life of its own, but in context, it's just another example of how incompetent this administration is. Papers with U.S. State Department markings were found Friday morning in the business center of an Alaska hotel, revealed previously undisclosed and potentially sensitive details about the meeting between Trump and Russian President Putin in Anchorage. 8 pages that appear to have been produced by U.S. staff and left behind accidentally shared precise locations and meeting times of the summit and then phone numbers of U.S. government employees. Like, I mean, come on. And what are you guys going to say to that? Oh, it's just an accident. You see, you don't have, when I'm speaking to MAGA, I'll talk slowly. From our perspective, that's a big word, from where we are, it seems that you don't actually care about the things that you claim to care about, right? You didn't care about Signalgate because you said, what about Biden? You didn't care about Signalgate ×2. What about Biden? You didn't care about you don't care about this, the protection and or, safe record keeping on classified information. He's like, what about Biden? And here we are again. It is just incompetent. Okay. So the information that was shared looks like, and this is out on, it's in the mod chat. I'll make sure it is. I'll just do it right now. Hold on a second. Okay. The information that's in there looks like it was like a, hold on a second. Oh, have they taken it down? That's interesting. Hold on. That's really wild. I wonder if they decided to take it down because they were getting embarrassed. Maybe. Let's see. Hold on a second. That's why we need reporting, friends. So, around 9 a.m. on Friday, 3 guests at the Hotel Captain Cook, a 4-star hotel located 20 minutes from the joint base Elmendorf, Richardson, and Anchorage, where leaders from U.S. and Russia convened, found the documents left behind in one of the hotel's public printers. NPR reviewed the photos of the documents taken by one of the guests, who NPR agreed not to identify because the guests said that they feared retaliation. It was a schedule. It was the schedule with the names of the people involved, phone numbers and contact information that was redacted for the post of U.S. officials, seating charts. I mean, a public printer. Exactly, a public printer. I mean, is that how bad? Couldn't you just go to Kinko's? I mean, again, this is the sequence. A 2x2 meeting between, a 2x2 meeting at 11:30, expanded meetings and working lunch at 12:15 to 2:45, POTUS press conference prep from 2:45 to 3:25, joint press conference, POTUS bids farewell, POTUS press interview with Sean Hannity, POTUS departs, Air Force One wheels up to JBA. So you're literally telling the world potentially that, by the way, Air Force One is going to be in the air at 5:45 p.m. local time. Do you not care? Does no one give a shit about sensitive information? Do you not care? There's the itinerary. All these people in one spot at one time. At one spot at one time. Again, the last three statements. POTUS departs the joint base to Air Force One, which means people would know that he'd be en route at that time. And then Air Force One wheels up. Exactly. Butter emails. Come on. Okay. So that's bad enough. But then we have to talk about how Fox covered this story, because they are scrambling. They do not know what to do, because they were surprised themselves as to how just, I'm not going to say awkward, how just unbelievably unprepared they were for what they saw or didn't see. So here's a little montage of Fox News attempting to come to terms with what they had just witnessed.
Joint news conference was anything but. It was not a news conference. There were no questions taken by either leader.
We got more out of Putin than we did from President Trump. And I expect that we'll get the full picture when he talks to Sean Hannity. Very, very grateful that he is going to be giving the full readout here soon.
And I think the big reason we're all kind of reeling right here is because we're...
It's an interesting choice of words. Reeling? Okay.
We know nothing.
Yeah, well, we know nothing.
We have no idea what those points are that are agreed on.
We have zero idea.
Yeah, Brian, that was different for sure.
Everyone else in this room was also surprised.
We are at ground zero as far as knowing exactly what that agreement looks like.
And we don't know if they blew off lunch or not.
The president never misses an opportunity to take questions.
That part right there, he never misses a chance to stand in front of the press and answer questions. As much as he complains about them, he needs them. He never misses that opportunity, and why not this time?
And so we're sort of like confused by this.
Kellyanne, I'll talk to you.
Look, I think anybody who's confused about how this went down is still wondering what happened at the end of that final Sopranos episode.
That's Fox. They don't need, they could not, they did not know how to cover it. And you know what? They haven't really been talking about it since. I was monitoring it over the weekend. They really have been trying to avoid it, instead trying to shift the focus to the National Guard in DC, right? So speaking of the Hannity interview, there's some interesting nuggets from that, and I'll play some of them for you. I'll just, not in any particular order, there might be some overlap here, but all of it is just nonsensical. He went to a safe space, Sean Hannity.
You had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10.
So I think the meeting was a 10.
Okay, the meeting was a 10. Okay.
In the sense that we got along great, and it's good when, you know, two big powers get along, especially when they're nuclear powers. You know, we're number one, they're number two in the world, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal. You never want to even mention that word, the word nuclear. But we have a tremendous nuclear. You know, I rebuilt it when I was president, first term, and I hated to rebuild it. It was the one thing I hated to rebuild, but we had to. And we have the greatest nuclear force. We have the greatest military in the world, actually.
What?
And they have a big nuclear presence also.
What? Okay, that's one bit of sound. Here's a little bit more. Whatever. Again, this was the interview with Sean Hannity because we had the schedule, because they left their secret documents on a local printer for everybody to see. So they're going to be printing out, the hotel's going to print out the daily specials, rebates at the gift shop. Oh, and meeting schedule for two presidents of various nations. Nothing to see here, though. Here you go. And then this meeting took place after that. But again, Trump gives the meeting a 10. Okay, good to know.
Your advice based on today when you talk to Vladimir.
Okay, again, what is your advice based on today when you talk to President Zelensky?
Your advice based on today when you talk to Vladimir Zelensky. What's your advice to
make a deal?
Make a deal? Make a deal. Make a deal.
Make the deal.
Gotta make a deal, yeah. Look, Russia's a very big power. And they're not. They're great soldiers, and they have great, but you know, they also.
So again, you heard it. Okay, very great power. I love you, Daddy. Let me tickle your nutsack. But you're not. You're the one. Your country was invaded. Your not very great power is kicking the shit out of this guy But again, let our president tell you that you mean nothing. Okay.
The best equipment. You know, they had our equipment. And I gave them javelins, if you remember, in my first term.
Actually, my guy, you didn't. That's why you got impeached. Don't forget, you threatened to withhold those javelins to Ukraine, and that's why you got impeached, dumbass.
In fact, there was a statement, I gave javelins. You remember the statement? I gave javelins, and Obama gave, because it was Obama at that time, Obama gave them sheets. And that's true. I gave javelins, and a lot of tanks were knocked out because of the javelins. The javelins, incredible weapon. It's a tank. You know, you look at this big, powerful tank. It ends up being a ball of metal lying on the ground and burning. I've never seen anything like it. We have the greatest military equipment in the world, but they did have courage in fighting. And, you know, they're fighting a big war machine. And we, I think, are close to a deal, but I don't like saying it. I always say, if I'm really close, I say 50-50, because so many things can happen. But I think President Putin would like to solve the problem, and it was a...
President Putin would like to solve the problem? So he leaves within hours of you making that statement at in front of the world on Sean Hannity. Putin's military sent more drone strikes and missile strikes into Kyiv and into Ukraine and unalive more innocent civilians. But he wants to solve the problem, right? Okay.
Problem that should have never happened. This was a war.
Here you go.
All of those families that lost somebody, and
yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. I'm so glad you're looking out for the Ukrainian citizens. Here's some more sound from that same presser or interview, whatever the fuck it was.
And maybe one big issue you don't agree on. Are you prepared to go public with that?
No, I'd rather not. I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done.
I just was texting back and forth with Sean Hannity, who just sat down with the president. And he said the president noted that he came out and said there wouldn't have been a war if he was president. And that's what part of Vladimir Putin said at the end of his written remarks. And he also said,
think of how desperate this sounds. We've got this guy that we've been propping up as the art of the deal guy, the world's greatest deal maker, can solve any particular problem. And Vladimir Putin says, "Well, Donald, if you had won election, I would not have invaded." And Fox is running with it, and the simps who watched it are believing it too. Jesus.
A scale of 1 to 10, I give today a 10. So that's the president grading what he thought of the meeting.
I'm going to make a trophy for myself and give it to myself and call it a win, that I earned it. I'm going to make a lavender heart that's even more important and bigger than a purple heart, and I'm going to give it to myself. I'm going to rename everything because I can, and I don't care if anybody's here. I'm going to say there's 9 gazillion people here. Everybody stroke my ego.
Meeting.
That's fucked up. Like, what? Now, again, it's really, really important. I know that this is a difficult ask for our friends on the right, but confirmation bias, right, is what he is counting on right now. Oop, what's going on? Hold on, just got to move the puzzle piece. That's a new thing. Okay, we're back. Confirmation bias is exactly what he's counting on, right? He wants you to believe that when Vladimir Putin says, you know, the KGB war criminal who's unalived his own citizens, who's disappeared journalists, who's unalived dissenters, right? Who's known to manipulate and use propaganda and lie to the world about things. He wants his followers, you know, you sideways wearing hat, fucking Trump is a man, woo! He wants you to believe that if he won the election in 2020, that this never would have happened. Why are we paying deference to Vladimir Putin? Why? Why is that? Why? Why do we have this joyful moment, rolling out the red carpet, stroking the hand, allowing him to ride in the beast, giving him a gold statue, having the United States military tack down the red carpet so the war criminal can walk on it, and this guy gets berated by his administration in the Oval Office and then insulted because he didn't wear a suit? Do you understand, MAGA, how pitiful this is? I can guarantee you that everybody in here today, the 1,200 people in here today, all want the war to end. We all do. No one wants this to continue. No one. No one wants this to continue. But the deference being paid by the United States president to a war criminal and the aggressor and the person who invaded this country is embarrassing. Here's the sound. Here's a little history of Mr. Trump's timeline when it comes to Russia. Hold on.
I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long.
I'll stop that war in 24 hours. I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours.
207 days later.
Productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on. Most of them, I would say. A couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky.
The various people who are appropriate? Okay.
Zelensky and tell them about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with.
Okay, that's good to know. That's cool. Again, he did. He sounded so defeated. And a lot of the reporting, we heard it from Fox, a lot of the reporting that came out of that meeting, including reporting from Fox, was they don't know what to do. They do not know what to do. They just got literally decimated. They got decimated. But in case you were concerned, Stephen Miller wants to remind everybody what's really, really important here.
California's governor and the mayor of Los Angeles. They are guilty of crimes against humanity. They're facilitating child trafficking, sex trafficking. Look, they think this is a game. They think this is a joke. This is life and death.
So again, Stephen,
California's governor and the mayor of Los Angeles. They are guilty of crimes against humanity. They are facilitating child trafficking, sex trafficking. Look, they think this is a game. They think this is
Okay, so that was yesterday on Fox, an attempt to try to distract people from that horrible. So Stephen Miller, we know Stephen Miller. We know who he is trying to tell you that the governor and the mayor of California are guilty of crimes against humanity. His words, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who is absolutely dog-walking President Trump in social spaces. But Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, are committing crimes against humanity. Here's the sound again.
California's governor and the mayor of Los Angeles. They are guilty of crimes against humanity.
Crimes against humanity. He is actually committing crimes against humanity.
Child trafficking.
He is endorsing it. He is also telling Bibi Netanyahu to finish the job in Gaza. To finish the job. Crimes against humanity. And Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are committing crimes against humanity? Do you see how desperate they are, friends? They are not coming at this from a position of strength. They are getting hammered in the polls. We've got the producer price index that came out last week. More data that I'm sure that we're going to have to just say the data doesn't exist. The data is fake. It's fraudulent. The books are cooked. It's suspect. They are desperate. They do not know what to do. And as I've been telling you guys in the beginning, when you are surrounded with an incompetence and your entire political identity is connected to lies, misinformation, propaganda, and when all the lies start to stack up and the little things that you expected to be wins are not wins, what do? You cheat. You ask states to protect you. You come out with bullshit statements saying that I'm gonna write an executive order ending mail-in balloting, which you cannot do, dude. You cannot do. It is fucking crazy to listen to that guy because he is nuts. Now, I want to provide a little bit of a respite for you, so to speak, I want us to hear from Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris nailed it. And this sound to me is exactly kind of what Hillary was right about everything. So is Kamala. This is from their debate.
Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
She was right. She was right about all of it. She was right about all of it. Could we just trust fucking women? Maybe. That might help a little bit. She's absolutely right. Everything that she said there is exactly what we're seeing. The expectation that Trump has for Zelensky is he is supposed to give up territory. Hey, why? Where's the ultimatum? Where's the tough guy talk? Instead, they want to come out with these bullshit. So there was this article about how they want, again, he wants his voters to think that he's this deal maker. Okay. Funny though, because there was a post about all these wars that he settled. Let's go through the list. Roger Stone posts this. President Trump has achieved peace between India and Pakistan. No, there's border skirmishes there all the fucking time. Always has been, always will be. Two nuclear powers who share a border who don't like each other. Israel and Iran, ceasefire? Really? Ceasefire? Really? Where's the peace deal? Where's the treaty? That war hasn't been settled. Serbia and Kosovo, Trump's intervention deterred escalation according to whom? Congo and Rwanda, no details. Thailand and Cambodia, I should say Thailand. Thailand and Cambodia, border clashes, ceasefire, still going at it. Armenia and Azerbaijan, okay. Let's hope it holds. Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon, the Abraham Accords. It's not this time. 6 deals in 6 months, 90 trade deals in 90 days. Come on. I know Congo's still going, of course. Come on. And then this, I'm going to settle this war in 24 hours. We are now almost 9 months in, and people are still losing lives. Wouldn't it be nice if one time he said, Vlad, for this war to end, you need to leave. He's never said it. You need to withdraw your troops. So my prediction is this. He's going to use tough talk today or whatever it might be with Zelensky, right? He's going to use this tough talk rhetoric and say, you're going to have to give up land. Zelensky's going to say no, and then he's going to pull the plug on funding for Ukraine. And that's why European leaders are going today. They're going to show, why didn't Biden stop war? Greg, oh God. Because Biden told Putin the only way we're going to even have a conversation about ending this war is for you to withdraw. That's what leadership does. Not continuing to stroke the dick of a thug. That's why European leaders are traveling with Volodymyr Zelensky today. That is why. This is the list. Oh my God, your picture. Whatever. This is the list. Hang on one second. The list of leaders that are traveling today with President Zelensky include, hold on a second. I have it somewhere. I lost my notes. You know it's the list. That's Keir Starmer. It's Maloney from Italy. It's I've got it. I want to find it. I just want to make sure I cite it correctly. Hang on a sec, guys. Boom, 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 boom. Ursula von der Leyen, who's the president of the EU. Mark Rutte or Ruddy, he's the Secretary General of NATO, although he's the guy that called Trump his daddy or whatever. So whatever. Emmanuel Macron, President of France. Friedrich Merz, Chancellor of Germany. Keir Starmer from the UK. Giorgia Meloni from Italy, and Alexander Stubb, President of Finland. So they're Finland. They're the ones that are traveling with them, and they are there to show solidarity. They are there to say, listen, he's going to do some bullshit. He's going to attempt to embarrass you. We got your back. So we are now in a situation where he is paying deference to him at his expense, expecting him to give up territory in his country to this guy. And he's going to threaten withholding more funds and more support and more aid to Ukraine, the country being attacked. And you guys will think that that's a good move, you, me, and MAGA. And you think that this is America first. That meeting is supposed to happen at 1 o'clock today. What a fucking joke. What a joke. Oh yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, Tiff. Here's the sound of Ruta. Jesus. Hold on.
You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
And Daddy sometimes has to use strong language. Whatever. Okay. You guys live in this particular delusional world that you genuinely think that this guy is telling the truth and this guy is telling the truth. Friends, what you do not know, not friends, but MAGA friends, colloquial friends. What you do not know is he has built his entire reputation on propaganda. We know that he interfered in the 2016 election. We know that. He told us that he wanted Trump to win. We know that. Now, you guys can put your head in the sand, ignore that, and then pop your head out when Tulsi Gabbard says, we've got the smoking gun, and there is no smoking gun. We know. He admitted it. He said, I preferred President Trump to win. We played the sound about how Russia media responded to what happened in Alaska last week. We played that sound. That they're cheering, they're celebrating it. They got what they wanted, everything they wanted. No more, they don't have to worry about sanctions anymore. They got the photo op. They got a filet mignon apparently because we got to see the lunch menu. He got nothing. No threats. No pull your troops out. Your president, okay? The president, MAGA's boy, MAGA's alpha got destroyed by him. Every single time. Every time you invite a war criminal to our country, stands on U.S. territory, gets a ride in the presidential limo, gets a gold trophy, gets celebrated, gets applauded, gets his hand stroked. What? And you guys are celebrating it. Do you not have any, do you not care about the look, the impression, the image that the world just saw with the U.S. military down on their knees, tacking down the red carpet? Tacking down the red carpet for this guy to stroke this guy's ego? And he did it. And he played him like a fiddle. Russia strikes on Kharkiv, unalive 3, injures 17. That happened on Saturday. Russian air attack on a residential area in Kharkiv, unalive 3 people, including a toddler, and injured 17. Ukrainian authorities said on Monday as the United States presses Kyiv to take a quick deal to end a war, Moscow started. A drone attack unalived a 2-year-old boy in Ukraine's second largest city early on Monday after a ballistic missile strike the previous night. The governor of the wider Kharkiv region said on messaging app Telegram, the number of the injured from the Kharkiv attack was continuously increasing. Also on Telegram, Mayor Ihor Terekov said 2 more were unalived and 17 injured in both attacks, among them 6 children aged 6 to 17. Roll out the red carpet. Buy him lunch. Give him a ride in the beast. Shake his hand. Stroke his hand. Stop threatening sanctions. Stop telling them to concede. Man. A woman has just been rescued from under the rubble. She's alive, Terekov said in a post early today, warning that more might be trapped under more rubble. Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine near the border with Russia has been the target of regular Russian drone and missile strikes since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022. The earlier ballistic missile strike on the city shattered about 1,000 windows. The spokesperson said some residents had to be evacuated. Ukraine's state emergency service said on Telegram. Reuters witnesses saw medics attending to residents on a street and rescuers inspecting damage in residential buildings. 2 people were injured in Russia's strikes on the adjacent region of Sumy that also damaged at least a dozen homes and an educational institution, authorities said. Quote, the enemy continues to deliberately target civilian infrastructure in the Sumy treacherously overnight. Reuters could not independently verify the weapons used by Russia. There was no immediate comment from Moscow. Both sides denied targeting civilians in their strikes, but thousands of people have lost their lives, the vast majority of them Ukrainian. President Trump hosts Vladimir Putin on Alaska on Friday with talks aimed at ending the war. He's urged Kyiv to make a deal with Moscow, stating Russia is a very big power and they're not. And you guys just don't care. You just don't care. Okay, let me find this other sound to play, because this is reporting again as to maybe what the expectation could be potentially for President Zelensky when he comes to DC today. And then I'm going to play some sound for you from Marco Rubio, because he is stuck in the middle of this because of things that he has said in the past. And this is what I say to you guys: when you build your platform based on lies and rhetoric, and then we've got sound, and it's so easy to call it hypocrisy, and they won't answer the questions. They'll just try to deflect away from it because they know. First of all, they know that when Marco Rubio goes on NBC News, they know that their simps aren't there watching. So when he's pressed on things that he said in the past, they're not going to play that sound on Fox. They're not going to play that sound on Newsmax. They're going to let him just spew his bullshit. Okay. Well, we got you. So here you go. This is some reporting about potentially what might be expected today from President Zelensky.
Now looking again at another high-stakes meeting between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, again in the White House, and hopefully for Ukraine, not a repeat of the horrific blowout that we saw earlier on this year. He'll fly Zelensky to DC to continue the lengthy phone call he says he just had with Trump. What's emerged from that? One European official saying to me, look, Putin's demands haven't really improved. That European official says, still wants control of all of the Donbass region, which he's fighting fiercely for at the moment, that Ukraine will not withdraw from, and that a few weeks of inconclusive diplomacy might buy his forces the time they need to make real progress in. The positive news for Ukraine, the growing talk now of security guarantees for it, if indeed a real peace deal is reached. Now, we've heard from French President Emmanuel Macron that the US is willing to contribute to security guarantees. I've heard from a European official the possibility that might be some kind of Article 5 arrangement. That's a term used by the NATO alliance about collective security. You attack one of us, you attack all of us. No one's suggesting NATO would be involved here, but it would be significant for Ukraine if European powers with American backing told Russia, if you attack Ukraine after this peace deal, you're attacking all of us. That's the sweetener. We don't know what the bitter pill, though, for Ukraine necessarily to swallow is yet. That will become clear in the Oval Office on Monday, most likely. But ultimately, Putin wants time, and he's bought himself a lot of it. An urgent demand for an immediate ceasefire, which everyone seemed to agree upon before Alaska. Now, Trump says everyone agrees that a peace deal, a significant peace deal coming quickly, is better. That's a huge change. It's a win for Putin, and the win he really wants is time.
Exactly. You're not going to get a peace deal unless there's a ceasefire. There's no way. Again, the leverage resides with him. to be honest. Because if he chose to use the power of the White House and the power of the United States government, it would be to say, listen, there is going to be no discussions of settling this war until you stop lobbing drones and missiles into the country that you invaded. He's not going to stop. He wants the territory that he took and then some. And that's what Trump said in that phone call with you. That's the reporting from the phone call with Zelensky. Not only do you need to concede the land that's been stolen from you, that the Russians are now currently occupying, but land that they're not even occupying. Why the fuck would Ukraine do that? Here's a scenario for you, MAGA, okay? Chinese army, theoretically, TikTok shop, we go to the TikTok shop. Theoretically, the United States is invaded, okay? And they take over half of Texas. The invaders from China come across the southern border and they take half of Texas. Texans, would you be comfortable with them having to give up half of your state because they took it? Or would you say, we're not going to have a conversation about settling this war until you leave? Why is it any different here? It's their country, illegally invaded, unlawful invasion by a war criminal, by an actual war criminal. But again, let's concern ourselves with what Stephen Miller has to say.
California's governor and the mayor of Los Angeles, they are guilty of crimes against humanity. They are facilitating.
Yep. And the skateboard mob in D.C. Yep. Got to worry about them. Got to make sure that we're worried about them. Meanwhile, crime rates are down across the board.
Sex trafficking. Look, they think this is a game. They think this is a joke.
No, Stephen Miller, we think you're a joke. We think you're a joke. And again, when your entire political agenda is wrapped around propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, lies, rhetoric, and hate speech, dictatorial tendencies, you've got nowhere to go when the entire thing blows up around you. Again, reporting from that meeting from Fox, we don't know what we've got. You don't have anything, you have nothing to talk about because the promise was that was going to be a ceasefire. That was the threat, either ceasefire or we're going to levy sanctions. So there's no ceasefire and then they remove the threat of sanctions. Come on. Okay, so then let's listen to some sounds that Marco Rubio had to say. And then I've got some interesting reporting for you from a new poll that came out. So this was Marco Rubio, again, over the weekend, on with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press.
I want to play something you said about President Putin. This was right after the invasion in March of 2022. Take a look.
This guy lies, habitually lies. He's never kept a deal he's ever signed, and he lies all the time. And I don't know why, but he plays us like a violin in the West, because the West wants to believe that you can cut a deal with everybody. You can't cut a deal with guys like this. He's a professional, experienced liar.
Mr. Secretary, given that, what makes you...
Listen to this answer, okay? Again, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, on the record, 2022, talking about how much of a liar Vladimir Putin is. We can't trust him. We've had ceasefire deals. We've had agreements made in the past. We can't trust him. He's a liar. We can't trust him. Listen to how he answers this question.
You think that if you are able to reach a deal with President Putin, that he would stick to it based on, as you just said, he's a liar?
Well, that's the point. That's why the deal has to have enforceable mechanisms in it. That's why
we have to have a fucking deal first, Marco.
Has to have things like security guarantees. That's the point I was making a few minutes ago when you were asking me about looking someone in the eye. What's important here is actions, not words, not paper, document. Those are all important. Those are elements of a deal, but they have to be enforceable. They have to be verifiable. They have to be enduring. There's no point here in signing a deal that's going to be violated in 3 or 4 months. There's no point in doing that. It actually would make things...
Because he violates every single time he signs a fucking deal. Even if he signs it, even if he agrees to terms. I think there's been a dozen ceasefires since the Crimea invasion, and every single time Putin has violated it. Every single time.
worse. So that's why this is such a difficult thing. Not only do you need a deal, you need a deal that's verifiable, that's enforceable, and that's enduring. If you don't achieve that, then I think you could have a ceasefire for a few months, a few weeks, and then the war will start again and more people will die. That's not the outcome we're interested in. That's not the outcome anyone wants. So that's why this is so difficult.
All right.
Is that why?
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, thank you so much for joining us after an historic week. We really.
Okay, so if I was interviewing him there and that was the answer, I said, Marco, you didn't answer my question. The question is that even if we signed a deal, are we expected to trust him? Don't forget, your president, your boss threatened sanctions. Now sanctions are off the board. Why are we not using sanctions for leverage? Why are we not demanding that Russia put down their arms so that we can negotiate this, Mr. Secretary? Would you care to answer? Or are you a feckless, dickless coward too? I know the answer. More from that same interview. Because it's just fucking mind-boggling. Actually, he's doing the rounds, so now he goes on ABC. So again, this is very tactful. This is a strategy. I'm going to go out on ABC. I'm going to pivot away from the actual questions because I know that my followers are not going to watch me on ABC because that's fake news. See, this is the overall strategy. You poison the well. Everything is fake unless I tell you it's fake. They know that their followers are not going to go on these news channels. So when I play the sound, people in chat, yeah, well, it's on ABC. It doesn't matter what network it's on. It's the person being asked the question that's answering, and then they're not answering. Okay, cool. So here's some more sound. Again, the question is, POTUS went into that meeting saying he wanted a ceasefire. So where are the consequences? Great question.
But again,
but Secretary Rubio, we don't know what any of that progress is. And the president went into that meeting.
You're not going to.
Okay, the president went into that meeting saying he wanted a ceasefire and there would be consequences if they didn't agree on a ceasefire in that meeting, and they didn't agree to a ceasefire.
Correct.
So where are the consequences?
Well, that's not the aim of this. Look,
that's not the aim. Did you just play your card, Marco? Is that not the aim? That's what President Trump talked about all week. Ceasefire. That wasn't the aim? Okay, good to know.
First of all, you're not going to reach
the president said that was the aim.
Agreement. Yeah, but you're not going to reach a ceasefire or a peace agreement in a meeting in which only one side is represented.
Yeah, no fucking shit, dude. No shit, right? So why wasn't Zelensky there? Funny.
That's why it's important to bring both leaders together, and that's the goal here. The president has said what he'd like to see at some point is we make enough progress so both leaders, Zelensky and Putin, can meet somewewhere and finalize this. The only way to finalize a peace agreement is you have to have both sides agree to it and both sides of it involved. How many times have we heard from the Ukrainians and from others? There's nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Well, Ukraine wasn't at the meeting, but this was a very important meeting.
Why wasn't Ukraine at the meeting then, Marco? You're the Secretary of State. Isn't that your job?
Now, ultimately, if there isn't a peace agreement, if there isn't an end to this war, the president's been clear there are going to be consequences, but we're trying to avoid that.
Consequences for whom? None for him. No consequences. Not only were there not consequences, he literally got everything that he wanted. He got the photo op. He got the U.S. military to get down on their knees and put the red carpet out. He got applause. He got the hand stroke. He got the sanction threat taken away. He got the threat of the ceasefire taken away. He got everything. Everything.
And the way we're trying to avoid those consequences is with an even better consequence, which is peace, the end of hostilities. That's the aim.
I'm sorry, peace is a consequence?
That's the goal here. And the president, he deserves a lot of credit. This is not our, look, when he says this, it's true. The United States is not at war. This is not our war. Ultimately, what daily life in America looks like will not be materially altered one way or another about what happens in Ukraine. We have dedicated time and energy to this because this president has made it a priority of his administration to promote peace and end or prevent wars. He's made that a priority.
Really?
And I think he deserves a lot of credit for the amount of time and energy that we have invested in something like this. And he's the only one in the world that could do it. Okay, none of these other leaders in Europe could get Putin to a meeting to talk seriously about any of this.
What?
So this is going to be difficult. It's been going on for 3.5.
Yeah, you know why, dumbass? Is because those other countries have signed on to the ICC. So if Putin steps foot in any one of those countries, they'll fucking arrest him because they're not afraid of him. They're not a simp like you and your boy is.
Half years, you have two very entrenched sides, and we're going to have to continue to work and chip away at it. I think we made some real progress. You talked about not knowing what was discussed. These peace deals, these peace agreements and negotiations, they don't work when they're conducted in the media, either through leaks or through lies. And usually they're both the same thing, lying leaks. Okay, they don't work if you do it that way. And they don't work if you go out and say aggressive and abrasive things about one side or the other, because then they just walk away.
Oh my God. That was something. Holy shit. Yeah, I think I have one more, a little bit more sound on that, and then we're going to talk about something else. What? Like, what? Okay, here's Stephen Miller again. Again, this is yesterday. I don't mean to laugh, but it's just, this is what happens. We told you, Kamala Harris was right. Hillary Clinton was right. I was right. We were right on the collective. When you have no foreign policy, when all you have is saber rattling, and you have a feckless coward in the White House who cannot follow through on anything, then it's just words. All right, so this is Stephen Miller attempting to justify what we just witnessed.
Can forge peace. President Biden was responsible for this war starting.
President Biden was responsible for this war starting? Okay, Stephen.
Donald Trump is fighting to end it, and as you know, he has already ended 7 wars around the globe, multiple that we can forge peace. President Biden was responsible for this war starting. Donald Trump is fighting to end it, and as you know, he has already ended 7 wars around the globe.
What about Biden? What about Biden? What about him? Again.
Multiple that we can forge peace. President Biden was responsible for this war starting.
President Biden, again, on Fox News, parroting what he said. More Russian propaganda. Literally coming out of the mouth of Stephen, I don't claim, we Steves don't claim him, of Goebbels Miller. Literally repeating Russian talking points about how if he had won in 2020, he would not have invaded. And now it's, let's just go out and tell our base, because they're not going to care what actually happened. Let's just tell them that if it's President Biden's fault that Russia invaded. You guys just don't give a shit. You just don't care. You don't care what the truth is. You just want to be on Team Trump. You just don't care. So again, a cadre of Europe's top leaders will join President Zelensky as he travels to D.C. today for a meeting with President Trump. However, Kyiv and Washington are sending mixed messages on the ultimate goal of the negotiations to bring Russia's 3.5 war in Ukraine to an end. A group of European leaders will travel to D.C. in a show of support for Zelensky, who will be meeting with Trump to discuss the end of hostilities between Kyiv and Moscow. The meeting comes 3 days after that meeting in Alaska. According to the Kyiv Independent, the coalition of European leaders includes European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Daddy. That group led by Zelensky spoke with Trump on the phone following his meeting with Putin in Alaska. Zelensky reiterates the necessity of a ceasefire. Trump's meeting with Putin changed his position on whether a path to peace begins with a ceasefire. Zelensky has long advocated for a ceasefire first. In a Truth Social post following his call with the European coalition, Trump wrote, "It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up." Yeah, no shit, dude, because this guy breaks it every single time he agrees to one. Remember, going into this, he said, I'm going to get a ceasefire from this meeting. And he got nothing. So now the expectation is Russia continues to be illegal occupation of a country, unaliving innocent civilians, with the expectation that there's suddenly going to be a peace agreement that involves Russia keeping the territory that they already earned And then some? Okay. However, on Sunday, Zelensky disagreed with that proposal. The Ukrainian leader had traveled to Brussels to meet with von der Leyen and wrote on X that, quote, they had agreed on the necessity of a ceasefire for subsequent diplomatic steps. Citing Russia's history of disregarding a set of 1994 security guarantees when Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal, as well as the 2014 Minsk Accords, Mikhail Alexeyev, a political science professor at San Diego State University, said the difference between a ceasefire and a peace agreement can, quote, be semantic rather than substantive. Given Russia's record, it scarcely makes any difference if any cessation of hostilities comes as a result of a ceasefire or a peace agreement. The crux of the matter is whether or not Putin will face credible constraints and costs in case he breaks the deal. Okay. Steve Witkoff, I've got some sound from him. He said in an interview over the weekend, State of the Union, Steve Witkoff said the president changed his stance on a peace agreement over a ceasefire because of the substantial progress made in Alaska. We made so much progress at this meeting with regard to all other ingredients necessary for a peace deal that the President Trump pivoted to that. I'm sorry, sentence makes no sense. We made so much progress at this meeting with regard to all the other ingredients necessary for a peace deal that President Trump pivoted to that place. Whatever. Part and parcel of that progress was reportedly Ukraine earning security guarantees akin to either NATO or EU membership. Putin had historically opposed such an agreement, but on Sunday, U.S. officials said the possibility was discussed during Friday's summit in Alaska. Okay, we got to an agreement that the United States and other European nations could effectively offer Article 5-like language to cover a security guarantee. It was the first time we had ever heard the Russians agree to such a proposal. There is no reporting on that whatsoever. So again, Article 5, any NATO countries attacked, then all NATO countries come to the aid. Only been used once. You guys know this because you're the smartest chat on TikTok. That was after 9/11. Okay? So let's think about that for a second. Let's think about this logically. Putin does not want Ukraine to join NATO. He does not want Ukraine to join the EU. He does not want Ukraine to be a democracy. So people like Steve Witkoff expect people, the MAGA simps, expect them to believe that a security guarantee signed by Russia, knowing full well that if Article 5 measures are put in place, then that would mean that if he breaks the rules of the agreement that he's broken every single time since 1994, other Russian presidents have as well, that NATO would come knocking at the door. Do you guys understand how ridiculous that sounds? I have an echo? I don't think I have an echo. Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? I mean, honestly. The story continues. Article 5 rests on the principles of collective defense and essentially states that an attack on one NATO member is considered an attack on all. The EU leaders at Zelensky's back have already adopted a name, calling it the Coalition of the Willing, signaling their intent to bolster Ukraine's defense regardless of an active war with Russia. Okay. Putin will need to see changes in military posture if there's to be lasting peace. That includes a large deployment of U.S. and allied troops right on the border of Ukraine, a significant international peacekeeping or tripwire force within Ukraine, and also most likely some form of closed skies provisions to beef up Ukraine's air defenses. No way in hell is Putin going to agree with that. It's not going to happen. Politico spoke with several officials who suggested the coalition's decision to travel to Washington with Zelensky is, in part, an attempt to avoid a repeat of Zelensky's ill-fated Oval Office meeting with Trump, this one, and Vice President J.D. Vance in February. Quote, it is clear that the outcome of the Alaska summit has risen concerns in Europe as Trump seems to have bought a large portion of Putin's argument. Yeah, no shit. Camille Grand, a former NATO official, told Politico, the meeting is not viewed as a total disaster, but Europeans are definitely worried about the direction of travel, hence the effort to avoid another drama during Zelensky's upcoming visit. Alexeyev said he expects that Trump will, quote, probe Zelensky's resolve. Trump can't probe anything. He's too stupid. A resolve that will be much stronger with the unbridled support of so many European leaders in tow. Zelensky's best hope is to convey steadfast resolve that, while some territorial compromises are possible, Ukraine will not cede land without a fight that Russia doesn't yet occupy, even if the U.S. cuts off all support. My expectation is that Trump will probe Zelensky's resolve and will apply more pressure if he finds this resolve wanting. But if he sees his resolve as genuine, he might turn around and put more pressure on Russia, since without the cessation of hostilities, it would be hard for him to reopen Russia for business. Despite the progress and previously unknown breakthroughs, Witkoff discussed on CNN, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, doing his own round of interviews on Sunday, said that any potential end to the war is still a long ways off. Yeah, no shit. We're not at the precipice of peace. We made progress in the sense that we identified potential areas of agreement. We did, according to whom? But there remain some big areas of disagreement, so we're still a long ways off. Imagine, if you will, you're the Ukrainian president, okay? And you, the country that was invaded by the war criminal, didn't get invited to a summit. Instead, you watch it on TV. You watch it, right? You see the American military on their knees. You see Donald Trump applauding as the war criminal, the invader of your country, the criminal who has unalived your own citizens, including children, with his hand being stroked by the president. Your experience from this meeting back in February is that you got actually, I think he held his own, but the attempt to embarrass him, being admonished, someone in the audience saying, "Oh, why didn't you wear a suit?" Imagine expecting to give up some of your territory, your land. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. He may decide to do that, but that's his decision to make. Do you really think Putin's going to agree to have U.S. troops on the border? That's one of the main things he does not want. He does not want Ukraine to be part of NATO for a couple of reasons. One, because of Article 5, and then we're going to offer security guarantees. I mean, come on. You think he's really going to go through that? I know it was MTG's boyfriend. You're right. So here it is. And we'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll report on it. Don't forget, friends, please continue to like and share the live. 1,300 people in here. If we can get the likes up to, say, 300K. And don't forget, there's a gifting goal today. And also, please consider supporting the channel. We are crowdfunded here. If you'd like to support us, you can do so at Factsstillmatter. All my pay apps live at Factsstillmatter. In fact, all of my socials are at Factsstillmatter. Consider subscribing to YouTube. We are also on Twitch, also on Substack. Not a lot of content over there yet. I just got those for backup. Just wanted to secure the username so we have it for the future. So, listen, I don't know. I can't imagine. Let me turn the fan on in here. By the way, I went outside this morning to take the still skunk-smelling dog for a walk, and it was like 48 degrees. I'm like, oh shit! It is approaching that time of the year. Yep. It is approaching that time of the year. But anywho. International diplomacy, at high stakes is incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging with even the best people. And we've got this guy. We've got Marco Rubio. We've got Pete Hegseth. I'm going to play some sound from Hegseth in just a moment. I mean, it's incredibly hard with the most competent people, especially when you've got somebody who is just a perpetual liar. Remember, I go into right-wing spaces, so you don't have to. You're welcome, but it's interesting to me to watch, especially the people who've got their backgrounds, they've got their American flag imagery and their claims to be patriots, and they are just sitting there smelling their own farts, all 9 of them on the same panel with like 3 people watching the live, saying how great it was in Alaska that we showed the respect to the president of Russia. And then somebody jumped in and said, well, what about Zelensky? Doesn't he get respect? Well, he shouldn't get respect because he's a Yahtzee. It's like the Jewish president of Ukraine being referred to as a Yahtzee. Okay. And then somebody said the easiest way for this war to end would be for Putin to leave. And their response was, well, why should Putin leave? Like, what? Because he's the invader. The worst part for me is, first of all, our friends on the right are just not very smart. They're just not. They're just not very smart. And they are so easily convinced and manipulated, right? So this is now where we sit. We sit in this particular space where it doesn't matter what the actual proof is. They are going to attempt to justify what we saw. Rolling out the red carpet, being tacked down by the U.S. military, on their knees, supporting a war criminal. Supporting a war criminal. As the Russian Federation stands over members of the United States military who took an oath to preserve and protect and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And there they are. I don't think that picture got talked about enough. That's why I wanted to talk about it. Again, tacking down the red carpet for Putin to come down the steps. And you fucking fake ass patriots think that that's okay. Why should we show Vladimir Putin respect? He hasn't earned respect. He should be respecting the world order. 124 nations signed on to the ICC that identified Vladimir Putin as a war criminal, a person who's actually committed crimes against humanity. But in Stephen Miller's mind, it's the governor of California, right? Yep. In Stephen Goebbels Miller's mind, it's the governor of California's
governor and the mayor of Los Angeles. They are guilty of crimes against humanity.
Okay, so there's the pivot, right? So a person who's actually guilty of crimes against humanity, who's actually unaliving children, who's attacking hospitals, who's attacking, you name it. Also, Bibi Netanyahu, another war criminal, attacking hospitals, unaliving civilians, starving children in Gaza. Our president says, finish that job, Bibi. Our president strokes the dick. And they ride around in the beast together. That's fine. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see. Thank you. That's kind of cool. Sweet. But again, the threat are the skateboard mobs in DC. The threat are the California governor and the mayor of LA, because they're committing crimes against humanity. And you simps will believe it. When there's actually somebody who has actually committed crimes against humanity, you simps will accept it. I said this last week, right? I've never seen a weaker, more pathetic group of people than, I'll be careful. Yes, Jess, I felt the kick in the shin. Anyway. Okay. Let's talk about a couple other things. There's really no updates to the Schmepstein situation. We certainly know that there's been some, misinformation spread specifically around, and I called this out last week. A lot of people on the left claiming that she was released on work furlough. That did not happen. We'll continue to watch that. This is the Trump files. I mentioned this to my mods this morning, that all of this is a distraction. The elections, the executive order that's going to come out about I am going to stop mail-in ballots. He can't. Okay, he can't do it. I want to get into some sound from Benny Johnson, because this is fucking dangerous. Actually, let's do this first. Let's talk about DC, because I think this is related to what it is that we're talking about. Let's use Stephen Miller's own words, that LA, Los Angeles, where there was lies and bullshit told to the American public to justify bringing in the U.S. military, right? Let's use that. Let's use the lies and bullshit and rhetoric told about Washington, D.C. Let's use that against them, okay? So I found some sound from May 7th of this year, okay? May 7th of 2025, in Donald Trump talking about D.C.
Crime is down in Washington, D.C.
Oh, what was that? Crime is down in D.C., okay.
street crime, violent crime by 25%.
Cool.
And it's people have seen, they've noticed a big difference.
3 months later.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
Okay. So it's one of two things. So crime was down back in May. So
crime is down in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Street crime, violent crime by 25%.
Cool.
And it's people have seen, they've noticed a big difference.
Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so then crime was down in May. So your federal government, right? Your federal government has purview over that. So if there's an increase in crime, then that's on you, right? That's on you. But we know that crime is down, so we're going to justify sending in the feds because of this statement?
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out.
Roaming mobs. What is this? Like the wild things? Roving mobs of what? Mobs of wild youth? We're supposed to be afraid of the skateboard posse? Okay. But meanwhile, this? Okay.
Maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
No, instead, we're going to lock up houseless people because they're the threat. We're going to rip parents away from their kids because they're the threat. We're going to tell elected officials that they are going to be arrested if that by exercising their constitutional rights and actually speaking up for their citizens in Texas, for example. But this is fine. This is fine. Nothing to see here. Okay. It's good to know. That's cool. And then speaking of DC, you guys know Benny Johnson. I've talked about him before. How incredibly dangerous he is because of who he is and the platform that he has acquired. This is his statement on, and this is I'll trigger warnings on this. Because of how just despicable and horrible it actually is. As soon as I can find it. Sorry, I'll get there. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. Appreciate y'all. Where is it? Did I lose it? I'm going to play that one. Did I lose it? Must have lost it. Hang on a second. I do have it. I just want to make sure I find it. Here we go. So this is again on DC, and I want you to hear this. I want you to hear this rhetoric. I want you. This is important that we're still talking about this, right? Because again, the lie that was told to justify calling in the National Guard. Now, listen. I understand that he's got the ability to do that. In fact, we know that he's always had the ability. The president's always had the ability to call in the National Guard. And you want to know the new pivot? Here's the new pivot from the right, because again, the justification, them acknowledging that the president has the authority to call in the National Guard. The argument that I'm hearing now from the right is that the laws have changed since then. Since January 20th since January 6th of 2021, the laws have changed. So back then, the president didn't have the authority, but now the president does. Okay. Cool. So this is Benny Johnson, who was just recently invited to the press room. So if Benny Johnson can get his way into the press room, why the fuck can't I? That's what I want to know. But this is him talking about DC. Okay, here you go.
Washington, D.C. must be swept clean.
Oh.
I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied.
Interesting.
Need to be bulldozed. I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to, you're just going to have to crack down. You're going to have to do the job, and you're going to have to get the crime out of Washington. That's my personal experience. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear online. What happened to DC, especially during the civil rights period,
here it comes,
was that protesters that were bussed up here stayed here. The city was burned to the ground. This happened during massive riots throughout the 60s and 70s. Mass swaths of the city were torched and were never really rebuilt. It is one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. In that neighborhood that I would walk every single day, racial epithets were screamed at us, rocks were thrown at us because we were white people. This city is a sunken place. Wow. It is an unsafe place. I mean, if that's what happens to me, imagine what happens to somebody who's like visiting here from a foreign country. Right? It's totally and wholly unsafe and a scar on the face of our country. And it must be healed. And President Trump is going about that heavy work.
Infested neighborhoods, as he calls it, and then connects that to the civil rights movement of the 60s. So he is literally calling for DC to be ethnically cleansed. Let's call it what it is. That's Benny Johnson, by the way. Yep, that's him. Benny Johnson, Christian nationalist, just recently invited to the influencer press seat in the White House. And then asked a question about DC, and that's kind of some of the stuff that he talked about. Yeah. Here, just the beginning part of this again.
Then Washington, D.C. must be swept clean.
Washington, D.C. must be swept clean. In other words, Washington, D.C. must be ethnically cleansed of the black people who came here during the civil rights movement and stayed. The same black people that he accused of burning down the city, right? Swept clean? Swept clean.
I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed.
Entire neighborhoods need to be emptied and bulldozed? Okay.
I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to
crime-ridden and infested, okay.
You're just going to have to crack down. You're going to have to do the job, and you're going to have to get the crime out of Washington.
But it was the skateboard mob that we're supposed to be afraid of, right? Okay.
That's my personal experience. Don't believe the bullshit that you hear online. What happened to DC, especially during the civil rights period.
Okay, so then now we're going to connect all the infestation, all the horrible things that he said about DC communities, that they need to be bulldozed and torn down, and here comes the racism.
Was that protesters that were bussed up here stayed here. The city was burned to the ground.
It was?
This happened during massive riots throughout the 60s and 70s.
Really?
Mass swaths of the city were torched and were never really rebuilt.
Got it.
It is one of the worst, most racist narco states and welfare states imaginable. In that neighborhood that I would walk every single day, racial epithets were screamed at us, rocks were thrown at us because we were white people. This city is a sunken place.
Wow.
It is an unsafe place. I mean, if that's what happens to me, imagine what happens to somebody who's like visiting here from a foreign country. Right? It's totally and wholly unsafe and
Yeah, you heard it. I'm going to tell people how bad DC is. I'm going to lie. I'm going to talk about how these neighborhoods are infested, and I'm going to connect that to the civil rights movement of the 60s, therefore saying that the black people in DC are the threat. Benny Johnson, literally just invited to the influencer seat in the press room. Let's call it what it is. He wants to ethnically cleanse. He's advocating for G-side in DC. That's what he's advocating for. Call it what you want, but that's what it is. Okay? It's not new news. It's not new news to black people. It's certainly not. But here's Benny Johnson just talking about it out loud. And the comment section from that particular post on his YouTube channel was unbelievable. Just like long overdue. Why? That's why DC votes 95% Democrat. Nothing new to our black brothers and sisters. Nope, nothing new there. But here it is. That guy gets a room. That guy, so many pictures with President Trump. He basically, stroking the D, the little D, the mushroom. Gets invited to the White House press room. Okay. Okay, good to know. I'm just checking. Just checking. Okay, I played that sound. Here's another example, right? This is another recent statement from, again, about how, from my perspective and my opinion alone, my opinion alone is that, backed up by the data, is that this is exactly what Benny Johnson is just describing what the White House DHS ICE policy is across the country, right? We don't like brown people. We don't like black people. We don't like gay people. We don't like anybody who's non-white Christian. We don't want women to vote. We don't want women to have a place in their society. We don't care. We want homogenized, literally an homogenized society, a raw milk society, if you will. That's what they want. So here's another example. Here's more. This is how Caroline Levitt, and then we're going to get into Gavin Newsom in a second.
ICE agents detained a 15-year-old student with disabilities outside an LA high school, even leaving bullets on the sidewalk. How does the Trump administration plan to ensure parents that their children can return to school without fear of being wrongfully detained or endangered by federal agents?
Okay, fair question. Okay, remember how, and I want you guys to put the filter on whenever I talk to you about this kind of stuff, because once again, everything that's reported that goes contrary to the foreign policy or domestic policy of the Trump administration, all of that are lies. Okay? That's what they want you to think. Anything that opposes the things that they say are lies. Okay? So you heard the question. What about that situation in LA where a 15-year-old disabled kid was rounded up by ICE? Here's Caroline Levitt's response.
Did you see that report?
Where did you see that report? He answered LA Times.
Okay, well, I'll have to look into the veracity of that report. I read the LA Times almost every single day, and they are notorious for misleading the public.
Oh.
I'm sure
They are notorious for misleading the public. Okay, Caroline.
There's more to that story than the way that you just
Caroline, I'm going to dunk on you in about 5 minutes, so buckle up.
characterized it. I will gladly go check on that report, and I'll get you the facts. Thank you.
And then she left, and then she walked off the stage. Well, here's part 2 of the story.
ICE agents detained a disabled 15-year-old boy outside Arleta High School in Los Angeles after mistaking him for someone else. District officials say ICE agents also left bullets on the ground outside the high school. The LA school district is now offering safe passage to school and offering online classes for any student who feels unsafe coming to school. It's an attempt to keep enrollment from dropping as immigration fears rise.
Okay. That would, by the way, was reported by a Fox affiliate in LA. Okay, Caroline. Okay, now for the dunking, Caroline. So you need to buckle up for this because this is going to be embarrassing for you. So Caroline Levitt, who you just heard, who says everything that you read, unless I'm going to tell you what's a lie. All these news agencies who are reporting on the actual facts of the case are telling you lies. But I'm going to stand up here and tell you the truth. Okay, so let's have that conversation, Caroline, shall we? This is her just last week on the economy.
Prices for everyday goods continue to decline. Energy prices fell in July, including gasoline, which is down nearly 10% over last year, and propane, which is down 2.5% over last year as well. Egg prices fell once again in July and are down 20% since President Trump took office. Shelter inflation, the largest contributor to overall inflation, is at its lowest level since October of 2021. Wage growth for American workers is beating inflation once again. As inflation declines, this administration continues to be wholeheartedly committed to putting more money back into the American people's pockets. American real wages are up 1.3% over last year and have increased each month since President Trump took office. And small business optimism, according to this morning's report, has also reached a 5-month high. Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump. That is our motto here at the White House. The America First economic agenda is working. We continue to see positive economic reports across the board.
Really?
Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has run at a 1.9 average annual pace in President Trump's first 6 months in office.
Okay, so from the BLS, again, because they just fired the BLS commissioner, and I want to go back to a conversation that I had last week with somebody attempting to justify the firing of the person in charge. Their claim was fraud. Their claim was cooking the books, and their claim was suspicious. Fraud would imply intent. Cooking the books would imply intent. Suspicion would then imply intent. Because you don't like the numbers does not mean that there's fraud. Now, I would like to think objectively we could all agree that if we have an opportunity to improve our data reporting, then let's do so. But what she just talked about, what she just stated there, was just complete bullshit. Sadly, the right is going to blame the source. Okay? According to the BLS, from July 2024 to July of 2025, food prices up 3%. Food at home prices up 2.2%. Food away from home up 3.9%. Electricity up 5.5%. New vehicles up 0.4%. Used cars and trucks up 4.8%. Shelter up 3.7%. Transportation services up 3.5%. Medical care services up 4.3%. Gas prices down 7%, yes, compared to the same month last year. Everything that she talked about right there, a flat out lie. But again, let's blame the data. Let's blame the maths. It's easy. It's easy to do that. Okay. We have what's referred to as the PPI, wholesale prices. Okay. Wholesale prices rose 0.9% in July, much more than expected. The producer price index jumped 0.9% in July compared with the estimate of 0.2%, the biggest monthly increase since June of 2022. But of course, in MAGA's mind,
I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
Right. Excluding food and energy prices, the core PPI, which is the producer price index, as opposed to the consumer price index. So again, it's the people that are purchasing the products, the materials to make things, which is again, starting to see the impact of tariffs. Excluding food and energy, the core PPI rose 0.9% against the forecast of 0.2%. Excluding food and energy and trade services, the index was up 6.6%, marking the highest gain since March of 2022 when inflation was approaching 9%. Okay? Following the release, the market implied odds of a September cut decreased, but only slightly, according to the CME. Wholesale prices rose far more than expected in July, providing a potential sign that inflation is still a threat to the U.S. economy, a Bureau of Labor Stats reported on Thursday. The Producer Price Index, which measures final demand goods and services, jumped 0.9% on the month compared to the Dow estimate of 0.2%. It was the biggest monthly gain since June of 2022. Excluding food, energy, and core PPI rose 0.9% against the forecast. Excluding food, energy, and trade services, the index was still up, but up 0.6%, the biggest gain since March. On an annual basis, headline PPI increased 3.3%, the biggest 12-month move since February and well above the Fed's 2% inflation target. Services inflation provided much of the push higher, rising 1.1% in July for the largest gain since March of 2022. Trade services margins climbed 2%, coming an ongoing development in President Trump's tariff implementation. In addition, 30% of the increase in services came from a 3.8% rise in machinery and equipment wholesaling. Also, portfolio management fees surged 5.4%, and airline passenger services climbed 1%. But you also know what else increased? Profits. Though PPI is followed less closely than the BLS Consumer Price Index, it provides important information on pipeline prices. Together, the measures feed into the Commerce Department's personal consumption expenditures, the Fed's primary inflation forecasting gauge, which will be updated later this month. We have this bullshit. We have Schmepstein. We have we have polling that shows him hemorrhaging even within his base. And now we have the Producer Price Index, which is a major indicator in how we track inflation, at the highest it's been, the biggest increase since March of 2022. But we shouldn't trust the data, right? We can't trust the data. We cannot trust the maths. More reporting from Reuters. Wholesale beef prices jumped 4.6%. Eggs rebounded. It's still up. Coffee prices increased. Excluding food and energy, goods increased 0.3%. We just talked about that. In the 12 months through July, the PPI increased 3.3%. Economists said the data suggested businesses were not fully absorbing the higher costs from tariffs, as some had argued in the wake of the mild increase in consumer prices in July, meaning that up until this point, manufacturers and companies and corporations have been absorbing some of the tariff costs, but they're done. They'll start passing it on. But profits are up. Profits are up. Funny how that worked out, right? Profits are up across the board, and yet consumers are now paying for it, and producers are paying for it, but profits are up. We don't get 1/3 of our coffee from Brazil. We get a lot of it, though. I used to work in the coffee industry. So we know that. So what I learned from being in the coffee industry for 12 years, you don't fuck with somebody's coffee. If it's not there, or if it's so crazy, then you're going to get a lot of cranky people in the world. So what can somebody point to a win? Can somebody point to a win? I mean, we know inflation's up. We know gas prices are up since he took office. We know that now that the PPI is up. So, okay. Let me do this. I want to get into the story of Gavin Newsom's just awesome fucking trolling. Let me just check and see if there's any more statements from the douchebag in chief. Maybe we talked about that. Where is it? All right, let me. I'm going to take a quick break, you guys. I'll just give you a little bit of sound. Hang on one sec. I'll be right back. Sorry. My gums were flapping this morning. I appreciate that. Yeah. So hey, quick little public service announcement. If you are in New England, or if you are willing to drive to within 4 hours of Burlington and you want to get a tattoo, my son just hooked me up with some new ink, and he's now a licensed tattoo artist. So let me know, and I'll point you in the right direction. Please feel free to message me. Okay. Another post from the president. He was in a frenzy overnight. Do the great American flags they put in front of both entrances of the White House look fantastic or what? Wow, what a difference. 1 year ago, the United States was an almost dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, the envy of all. What a difference a president makes. Okay. The fake news will say that it's a big loss for President Trump to host so many great European leaders at our beautiful White House. Actually, it's a great honor for America, President DJT. Big day at the White House tomorrow. Never had so many European leaders at one time. My great honor to host them. This one, though. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started. No getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into Ukraine by Ukraine, going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war that he didn't start with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Okay. And then this one. This one's interesting. The very unattractive, both inside and out, Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, said, quote, Putin got everything that he wanted. He did. Actually, nobody got anything too soon, but getting close. Murphy is a lightweight who thinks it made the Russia president look good in coming to America. Actually, it was very hard for President Putin to do so. This war can be ended now, but stupid people like Chris Murphy, John Bolton, and others make it much harder to do so. Wait. So 13 hours ago, he said, it was very hard for President Putin to do so. The war can be ended now, but only according to him if President Zelensky wants the war to end now. Okay. Okay. I don't understand two things. I don't understand where. Well, I do understand. I'm expecting to hear. Lindsey Graham was on Friday night with Will Cain. And Will Cain tried to say, well, you heard Putin. He said, listen, if it wasn't for, if Trump had won, there's no way that Putin would have invaded. And Lindsey's like, Vladimir Putin invaded. I don't trust a word that comes out of Vladimir Putin's mouth. So that's about as far as we'll go from people on the right willing to kind of admonish what's happened. But yet, here we are. Zelensky can end the war. Now tell me exactly how that would work. Here's a scenario. Zelensky lays down his arms and Russia agrees to stay and they can continue to occupy foreign land. Is that how Zelensky ends the war? Again, the quickest way for the war to end would be for the invading army led by a thug who's getting his hand stroked by our president, who is getting cheered as he's coming off the plane as we watched the American military drop to their knees and roll out the red carpet. The way for that war to end would be for him to order his army to leave Ukraine. That's how it would end. That's how we would get to where we are. That's how. Not for Volodymyr Zelensky. Sorry, Mr. Zelensky, I apologize. Volodymyr Zelensky, President Zelensky, for him to surrender a lick of fucking territory. Why should he? Why should he? Why should he? And this is the thing that I watch the comments go by from people who just, you guys are so indoctrinated into the cult. You just don't get it. You are okay with this. I would like to ask this question. Okay, this is the question I would like to ask. If Joe Biden were in that picture, okay, if Joe Biden had invited the war criminal to meet in Alaska, applauded for him, ordered the U.S. military to be stroking the, literally tacking down the carpet, and then saying all the flowery things he has said about Vladimir Putin, you guys would be calling for a fucking firing squad. And you know it. You would be calling for a firing squad. But because it's him, you don't care. Because it's him, you don't care. Make that make sense. Just imagine, just cover that up, okay? Cover that up. If it was the black man in the tan suit who was sitting there railing on Ukraine, you would have been all up in his shit. How embarrassing for an American president to do that to a guy who's defending his country. If it was the black man who did this, you'd be like, God, what an awful moment. The United States president ordering the military to tack down the carpet for the war criminal? Surprise. It's your boy. It's your boy. As a reminder, there is the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has warrants out for his arrest. Yep. Charging him with unlawful deportation and transfer of Ukrainian children from occupied territories to Russia during the war. The ICC concluded there were reasonable grounds to believe that Putin bears individual criminal responsibility. A second warrant was also issued for Maria Lvova-Belova, Russia's commissioner for children's rights, for the same conduct. 124 member states, called states parties to the Rome Statute. Those countries are legally obligated to arrest Putin if he sets foot in their country, on their territory. Russia is not a member, and neither are several major countries, including the US, China, India, Israel, North Korea, by the way. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You guys see this? Remember this moment? Vlad and Kim Jong-un sharing a little Zinfandel. Another safe space. So MAGA. He, the war criminal, safe here with another war criminal. Okay? A little lighthearted moment. Cool, right? Little lighthearted moment. And then we have this. Right? Dictators of a feather flock together. Totally cool, right? Nothing to see. Nothing for us to be upset about. You understand? See, here's the problem. You don't understand. When you do things like this, and when you do things like going into North Korea, that legitimizes those individuals. They should be isolated. He's considered a pariah in the world. He should be, because he invaded a sovereign nation without justification, instead of your lies, except the lies that you've been told. Where's your anger? Where's your frustration? It's not rocket science. It's not that hard. He aligns himself with dictators. He saluted a North Korean general. He went into North Korea across the DMZ, legitimizing a dictator, and then came back afterwards and said, I got all these deals. Within 2 weeks, North Korea was right back to testing the missiles again, laughing at him. Same thing with him, mocking him. But again, the skateboard posse in DC is the threat. Or Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are committing crimes against humanity. Okay. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I don't know if you guys have been following the saga between Laura Loomer and MTG. Are you guys aware of that at all? So let's just, this will make you laugh, and we'll get back to our regular topics. By the way, friend, don't forget, we are crowdfunded here. Let me just double check. You want to support the channel, you can do so. Best way to do that is through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Everything is at Factsstillmatter. I appreciate y'all very, very much. Let me just double check. Okie dokie. Just a little side note. Today, so this is not baseball talk, but I'm a lifelong Red Sox fan. The Red Sox have been affiliated with what's called the Jimmy Fund. It's the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. It is world-renowned for their treatment against childhood diseases, in particular cancer. My daughter spent some time down there when we were trying to identify her cancer. So this time of the year, today and tomorrow, the Red Sox do the NESN WEEI Jimmy Fund support. It's a fundraising thing that they do every single year. If you know somebody who's been touched by cancer, if you know someone who has cancer, or if you're looking for an organization to support, I would highly recommend Dana-Farber. You can just look for the Jimmy Fund and you can donate money to that particular cause. So it's personal for me and my family. If you do have a couple bucks and you want to support that cause, it's a great way to do it. You can find it at jimmyfund.org, or just go to the WEEI NESN Jimmy Fund Radiothon. You'll find it. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay. So there's this story about Laura Loomer, who there's rumors that Laura Loomer is now banging the president. I don't know if that's true. I'm not going to go there. We'll just call it a rumor. But it's gotten really, really heated because there's been lawsuits filed by Laura Loomer, specifically as it relates to MTG. So they've had quite a back and forth, right? So in deposition, she's called out Lindsey Graham for being gay. I'm not judging there. She's tried to out him. Well, it's gotten really wild because we have some of the deposition. This is a reference to Lady Graham. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham also called you toxic around the time that you were at the debate. And yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Okay. And you responded to him on Twitter. Yeah, I called him gay. Okay. Can you maybe might think why that would be necessary? Well, it's well known. Can we mark this as exhibit? So it's well known, apparently, that Lindsey Graham's gay. Okay, whatever. Do your thing. Sadly, he still votes against his own community. But where it gets really, really interesting is the back and forth between Laura Loomer and MTG, because MTG is perhaps think maybe she's been replaced, or maybe she feels like she's not as high up on the list anymore. Well, we've got some of the deposition, some of the testimony. This all started because she has made some pretty wild, salacious claims against MTG, and yeah, that's where I'm going, Facts. So Laura Loomer recently sat for a deposition pertaining to her defamation lawsuit against HBO's Bill Maher, because Bill Maher came out and made the statement that Laura Loomer is banging Trump. So she sued him. So that's where a lot of the deposition comes from. Who suggested that Loomer might be having an affair with President Trump in September of last year, after Loomer accompanied Trump to his one and only presidential debate with Kamala Harris. It went how you might expect. Laura Loomer was offered a job by the Trump administration, by Trump himself in 2023. According to Loomer, a self-styled white nationalist who has celebrated the drowning unalivings of migrants in the Mediterranean Sea, Trump himself tried to hire her to work on his campaign back in 2023. Quote, I was actually told that I was going to be working for President Trump when he hired me in his office in March during a private meeting with him and Susie Wiles at Mar-a-Lago. And this was during the primary, and President Trump had actually instructed Susie to onboard me, to do research for, and perhaps assist with communications. She can barely talk and she wants to work on the comm side. Okay. As well as in the primary, explained Loomer, who said in a New York Times story about her ended up sinking her chances of landing a job with the campaign. Where the president was very impressed by just how well versed I was and stuff. And he was very impressed by my reporting and my understanding of political affairs. And so he wanted to hire me on the spot. And I didn't even need a job interview. The problem is that during this entire exchange, it was brought up that she said some very, I'll call it, not necessarily complimentary things about MTG. Okay. Bolger is the attorney that is that is questioning on the Bill Maher side. She's the attorney here, Bolger. When I refer to Bolger, that's the person who's questioning Laura Loomer. So other than your claim that the reporting about your response to Mr. Maher stopped you from traveling on the airplane, and you say getting a job in the administration, is there any other financial damage that was caused by Mr. Maher? Loomer, as I said before, I would have been paid much more than I was making previously, and who knows what I could have parlayed that into, or add that to my resume in the future. There are people that go on who work for the administration who get to go work at boards. There's people that get to have foundations. I'm reading the transcript, which makes it hard to read it because it makes no sense. But this is a person who wanted to get a job in the administration working on comms. Okay. There's people who who get to go become Fox News contributors. They become contributors on mainstream media. Look at somebody like Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre, for example. You know, they both have shows. Karine just announced a book deal. So when you work for administration, once the person is out of office or once you're done with your job, you know, you could parlay that into speculative opportunities. Speculative opportunities? Bolger asked. Yeah, it's not speculative. It's really it's happening. It's compounding. It is what it is. It's compounding. Damages, punitive. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Loomer recently reignited their feud, which began last September when Loomer suggested that the White House would smell like curry if Harris defeated Trump in a post. Quote, "This is appalling and extremely racist. It does not represent who we are as Republicans or as MAGA. This does not represent President Trump. This type of behavior should not be tolerated." Marjorie Taylor Greene posted that. Okay. Loomer responded by mocking Greene for her infidelity and referencing the Arby's in your pants that led to the following discussion between her and Bolger in their deposition. This is fucking wild. Bolger, can you explain to me what it means to have the Arby's in her pants? Larry Klayman, Laura Loomer's attorney. Objection. Relevancy. Bolger, answer the question. Loomer, Arby's sells roast beef. Bolger, right. Can you tell me why you were talking about the Arby's in her pants? Loomer, well, it's just an expression. Bolger, what is the expression trying to convey? Loomer, it conveys the reason why she got a divorce by her own admission. Bolger, because she had roast beef in her pants? Loomer, yeah, Bolger, she'd put roast beef in her pants? That's what you're trying to say here? You're literally saying she put Arby's in her pants. I'm saying, Loomer, I'm saying she literally, it's so ridiculous. She literally puts Arby's in her pants. Klayman, objection, relevancy. It went on. At one point, Bolger attempted to get Loomer to admit that she was talking about Harris's vagina when she tweeted that Harris had, quote, an infested snatch. But Loomer refused, causing Bolger to blow it up on her. Bolger, you wrote a sentence saying that she had, quote, an infested snatch. What is your basis? Loomer, I don't know. I was referring to, honestly, I could be referring to Kamala Harris herself. Bolger, what? Of course you're referring to Kamala Harris. Yeah, I'm talking about Kamala Harris herself. Bolger, you're talking about her body. You're talking about her vagina. Loomer, no, I'm just talking about Kamala Harris. Well, snatch is a derogatory term for vagina. Wouldn't you agree? Isn't it? Loomer, it's up for interpretation. Bolger, you wrote, stop talking. You wrote a tweet that says Kamala Harris has an infested snatch. Now, be the First Amendment warrior that you claim to be and admit that you were saying the Vice President of the United States had an infested vagina. Admit it, because that's what you were doing, and everybody knows it. Klayman says it. Klayman, say it. Just say it. Loomer, this is coercion. You just told me. Wow. Okay, so I think people know what the roast beef in the pants is referencing. So she got caught. So she literally tried to say, I was just referring to her literally putting an Arby's roast beef sandwich down her pants. That is MAGA, ladies and gentlemen. She is as hardcore MAGA as you can possibly get. And there are people out there cheering for that as well. MTG. Bolger, you're a coward. Loomer, that isn't true. I'm not a coward. Yes, Bolger, you're a coward. You won't even admit to what you did. Loomer, I'm not a coward. I'm just not going to be. Bolger, Ms. First Amendment warrior won't admit it. That was a person that was being considered for a position in the administration, referring to Kamala Harris the way in which she did, and then literally being caught by what you were saying, because I think we all know what she meant when she said Arby's in MTG's pants. I think we can make our own conclusions, right? So instead of admitting it, the being the First Amendment warrior that she claims to be, instead of just admitting that she was saying derogatory things about MTG's body parts, Instead, she said, no, I was just referring to her actually putting a Arby's roast beef sandwich down her pants. Okay. That is our current administration. People like that running our government. What the hell are you on about now for FS? Give it a T-Cake. You're just a troll idiot. Just, you don't have anything to say. Nobody cares. Nobody bothers to hear anything that you say. I shouldn't even acknowledge you. Anyway, those are the kind of people that we have in charge of our government. Okay, so I want to share a couple of other things for you guys as a reminder that there's things that are still happening around us, right? We are anticipating President Zelensky being in the Oval Office today. I do not know how that's going to work, if all the other world leaders are going to be invited in there as well, but I'll be curious. We'll be watching that. The press or that meeting is supposed to happen at 1 o'clock today, and there will likely be a presser. Now, I want to remind people of what happened at the end of this meeting, right? He paid deference. He called him a strong man. He called him a strong leader. Okay, what is going to happen when we get the sound from his meeting with Zelensky today? Be interesting. All right, this was shared with me. This is the Lancaster, California City Council meeting from last week. I will just play you the sound.
And if I could give them the fentanyl, I would. I absolutely would. Make no mistake about it. Did you have something you wanted to share with us?
That's the mayor. Okay, that is the mayor. His name is Rex Paris. He's the mayor of Lancaster, California, and has been so since 2008.
No, other than your anger and your rage.
What it is? What kind of a mayor talks about giving the homeless fentanyl, and you guys don't say anything about it? That's metaphor, no metaphor. What are you saying that for?
I'm saying it because I do not want the homeless, criminal population who are drug addicted, who are robbing, raping, and murdering our citizens to be in Lancaster. And yes, if I could give that particular population fentanyl, I would give them fentanyl.
You're an evil man.
I'm an evil man.
You're an evil man.
Because I don't want drug addicts raping and murdering our citizens.
That's evil.
Well, then I am evil. I will have to concede that I will do anything necessary to protect the women and children of this city.
Wow. Wow. That's the mayor of Lancaster, California. His name is Rex Paris. R. Rex Paris. The mayor, who held this position for 20 years, reiterates his disgusting taste, suggesting to fix Lancaster's houselessness problem by just giving the houseless people the F drug. You know how we always wonder about where the empathy is in our country? And for those of us who are truly empathetic towards the needs and the suffering of others, you hear somebody like that. And don't forget, policies now from the Trump administration are criminalizing houselessness. And he's just proud about it, celebrating it, cheering it on. I know, let's just kill them. Let's just unalive the houseless population, and he won't lose sleep over it. And then at the end, I care about protecting children? No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't care about protecting women? No, you don't. So what have we heard this morning? We heard Benny Johnson, okay, a Trump sycophant. Benny Johnson wants to ethnically cleanse D.C. We've got this guy in Lancaster, California, who thinks we should just give the houseless population the F drug to eliminate them. That would include veterans, Mr. Paris, because roughly 20% of the houseless population are veterans. And a large chunk of Americans are one paycheck away from becoming houseless themselves. But again, we got to worry about the skateboard mob, the skateboard posse. Okay. We got to worry about undocumented immigrants who don't commit crime compared to white people. Yeah, but nothing to see here, right? Yeah. Nothing to see here. Okay. Let me, I just want to remind folks of a couple of things on that particular topic, because this is the fight that we're in. I've played sound from you from Doug Wilson before, and I'm going to just allow me to do this just for a moment, because I think it relates to specifically a similar rhetoric that we are getting from high-ranking members of the Trump administration's cabinet. We're going to talk about Pete Hegseth again, because Pete Hegseth was in Anchorage, so he was probably the one who left the seating chart, the itinerary, basically where you could find the president on a printer in the fucking business center of the hotel. And again, some of the rhetoric that we just heard from that mayor of Lancaster, California, I want to play some sound from the continuation of this story about Pete Hegseth.
Secretary Pete Hegseth belongs to an arch-conservative church network. Here's what you need to know. Hegseth says he's proud to be a part of the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches. He recently made headlines when he shared a CNN video on social media about CREC, which showed its pastors arguing women shouldn't have the right to vote.
He didn't just repost it like, oh, here's an interesting thing that these weird people are doing. He was, in effect, reposting it and saying amen at some level.
CREC ascribes to a strict version of Reformed theology, which puts emphasis on an all-powerful God who has dominion over all of society. So what does this church say about women? The church practices complementarianism, the patriarchal idea that men and women have different God-given roles. Women within CREC churches can't hold church leadership positions, and married women are supposed to submit to their husbands. Hegseth's view on women has been in the spotlight, especially after he faced sexual assault allegations for which no charges were filed. Before his nomination to lead the Defense Department, Hegseth had questioned women serving in combat roles in the military.
Yeah, that's Pete. So here's some more sound about Pete Hegseth. And I want to, this is important because I think it fits in exactly what we were just discussing. Not specifically, but the overall disdain for human rights that this administration has. Okay, and people that are not even in the administration, people who are in Republican leadership positions, like a mayor of Lancaster, California, for example, just do not care. Do not care about the suffering of others, right? Do not have no empathy whatsoever. Instead of attempting to solve a problem, your solution is just eliminate. Instead of addressing crime at the root cause, like why, poverty, for example, instead you just want to give them the F drugs so they just are off your streets. Okay, and that kind of, and then that aligns with some of the rhetoric that we hear from the administration, leadership positions. So this is Pete Hegseth being interviewed by Will Cain.
The Reconciliation Monument. It has been returned to Arlington National Cemetery following its removal in 2023. This is a Confederate monument. It was taken away, as I mentioned, several years ago. Why was it important for you to bring that back to Arlington National Cemetery?
This is wild. Listen to this answer.
Because we recognize our history. We don't erase it, Will.
Okay, we recognize our history. We don't erase it. Okay.
We don't follow the woke lemmings off the cliff that want to tear down statues. We look at and learn from our history, all aspects of it. And so Arlington deserves to have, and we're grateful to the state of Virginia for partnering with us. It wasn't easy. We fought to make it happen. And the Reconciliation Monument will return to Arlington where it belongs, to recognize the service of Americans of all chapters. So we're not tearing stuff down. We're done with that. We're putting statues back. We're putting paintings back. We're recognizing our history. We're restoring the names of bases as we've done across the country. Wow. Because we're proud of our history, as difficult as it may have been in some chapters. We're going to teach it, we're going to live it, and we're going to fight for it.
Really, Pete? Is that what you really want to say, Pete? I don't know if you want to say that, because I did a little bit of research on some of the things that you've said about, about things like erasing history. So let's talk about it, shall we? Just a little bit, Pete. I just want to remind people who you really are, because you don't give a fuck about history, Pete. You just care about the impression. You want people to think that you get it, You want people to think that you're a bona fide hero defending the rights of marginalized. Okay, let's look into that, shall we, Pete? Let me just find it. Is this it? Pete. I wish you hadn't said that, because it just makes it so much easier for me to destroy you with your bullshit. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Pete. This is the Trump administration approaches to certain things like that. Just to level set, since it's been a moment, let me just play this sound for you guys again, okay? Just want to make sure you heard this properly.
Defense Secretary.
Not that one. Hang on one sec.
The Reconciliation Monument. It has been returned to Arlington National Cemetery following its removal in 2023. This is a Confederate monument. It was taken away, as I mentioned, several years ago. Why was it important for you to bring that back to Arlington National Cemetery?
We're talking about a Confederate monument. Confederates who wanted to own people. Okay.
Because we recognize our history, we don't erase it, Will. We don't follow the woke lemmings off the cliff that want to tear down statues. We look at and learn from our history.
Okay, you get the idea. So this is what the Trump administration has done to wanting to preserve history. The National Park Service altered language and visuals related to slavery, civil rights, and the Underground Railroad. References to Harriet Tubman and explicit mentions of slavery were replaced with vague harmony-style wording. This shift sparked concern that the administration aimed to dilute the truth of systemic racism and redefine the narrative toward national unity over historical accuracy. The Manzanar Historical Site. At Manzanar, a former Japanese-American incarceration camp, new signage encouraged visitors to report displays that seemed negative about Americans or failed to highlight natural beauty. Critics argue this moves towards suppressing painful historic truths in favor of a sanitized, feel-good national narrative. Smithsonian. Executive order restoring the truth and sanity to American history in March of this year directed that the Smithsonian museums be vetted to align with a patriotic, unity-focused historical narrative, stripping away the administration, what the administration viewed as divisive, race-centered ideology. A review of 8 key museums was launched ahead of the 250th anniversary, prompting concerns that scholarly independence and historical nuance might be undermined. Department of Defense. Isn't that your baby, Pete? The Department of Defense and the DEI content purge. The Pentagon, under Pete Hegseth's leadership, and then under directives tied to the DEI rollback, scrubbed profiles of significant figures such as the Tuskegee Airmen, Navajo Code Talkers, women veterans, Hispanic veterans, Jackie Robinson's military service, and more. Over 400 books, including the Holocaust-related content, were purged from military library collections. Reinstating Confederate monuments and narratives. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth defended restoring Confederate monuments, including Moss Ezekiel's statue at the Arlington National Cemetery, with rhetoric framing this as, quote, preserving our proud Confederate history. Critics called this a glorification of a white supremacist past and an effort to perpetuate the lost cause myth. Renaming landmarks. Gulf of America, Mount McKinley. Executive Order 14172 in January mandated reverting Denali's name and renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. This was seen by many historians and communities as an attempt to erase indigenous heritage and impose a politically symbolic reinterpretation of geographic names. The 1776 Commission and Patriotic Education, originally formed in 2020, and reestablished in 2025, the 1776 Commission produced the 1776 Report, pushing a glorified version of America's founding principles while minimizing systemic racism and framing progressivism as a threat. The report was denounced by historians as politically partisan and academically unserious. National parks and cultural signage more broadly. Additional examples include the removal or softening of Native American history in Muir Woods. LGBTQ plus narratives at the Stonewall National Monument, and references to slavery at sites like Independence National Historical Park. Some junior ranger programs omitting climate science or indigenous dispossession have also come under scrutiny. This museum's preserving civil rights history, pushing back. In response to federal efforts to suppress black history, institutions like the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan have taken steps to preserve key civil rights artifacts, such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Jackson Home, underscoring how cultural institutions are resisting the attempt to resisting the attempt to erase our difficult history. So Pete, miss me with your bullshit. And again, he does that on Fox News, where he will not get challenged. Literally projecting and contradicting himself. And don't forget, the Department of Education now wants to initiate state-level PragerU curriculum, which basically says that, Columbus wasn't so bad. Slavery, there were some advantages for black people in slavery, blah, 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 blah. This is Christian nationalism, friends. This is it. This is full-blown Christian nationalism. There's no other way to describe it other than that. So Pete, you want to go out publicly and tell people that you care about American history. And again, I just want to hear this sound again because I think it's really important, because this is what you're telling people.
All aspects of it. And so Arlington deserves to have, and we're grateful to the state of Virginia for partnering with us. It wasn't easy. We fought to make it happen, and the Reconciliation Monument will return.
So what he's saying is that I want to recognize the fact that we're going to support the Confederates who wanted to own slaves, but we're going to erase our history that involved slavery. Right? Right? Okay. But again, don't tell the left that all you guys want to do is talk about race. All you guys want to do is perpetuate racism. Don't tell the left that all we do is turn everything into a conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, it's you guys that don't give a fuck about diversity. It's about you guys who don't give a fuck about equity or inclusion. We talk about it because it is the American palate. We talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about our history because I know our history, because I've studied it. The entire system built on systemic racism, and we still see it today. Every single day we see it. Every fucking day we see it. You guys are the ones that don't want to talk about it. You guys are the ones that don't want it taught. You want to homogenize it. You want children to understand that, well, there are some things in our past that we probably shouldn't talk about, but all in all, it's good. Okay. Good to know. We played that. So let's shift gears and let's give Gavin Newsom a little love. The update of the upper New York. Yeah, there's still a special election that needs to be called in New York State. I don't know why that hasn't been called yet. It's basically to fill Elise Stefanik's seat. Did she even get a job someplace else in the administration? I don't even know. We'll follow that. Okay, so Gavin Newsom, in case you haven't been following, is really doing the work, right? He has said that if Texas does their thing, then California's going to do their thing, and my hope is that he does it anyway. So we flat out know that every Republican state now is going to gerrymander. So the game is on. So the question is, who's going to end up being advantaged? The advantage already sits with the Democrats, because we've seen polling from independents say, I'm done with this bullshit. Trump is upside down in all of his polling, all his polling information. The gap between disapproval for Democrats and Republican is narrowed. It's within a few points. Democrats have actually picked up support. So their approval rating sits down in the mid-20s, where Republicans is down into the upper 20s. So neither party is popular. Right doesn't want to talk about that, though, right? The issue, though, is that Democrats have been waiting for some resistance, waiting for some people to stand up. And we've seen it with Gavin Newsom. And I've been critical of him. He's starting to kind of win me over a little bit. There's still some things I'm going to be critical of, but he's starting to win me over a little bit. So these are some of the things that he is using in response to Trump, and he's calling him out at his own name, using all caps, for example, and then writing in the style that Trump has used his True Social post. So this is in all caps, okay? Donald Trump, the lowest polling president in recent history. This is your second to last warning. The next one is the last one. Stand down now or California will counterstrike legally to destroy your illegal crooked maps in red states. Press conference coming, hosted by America's favorite governor, Gavin Newsom. Final warning next. You won't like it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Brilliant. Another one. Donnie J and Carol Lyon-Levitt will have their little hands full today. Oops. I, Gavin Christopher Newsom, America's favorite governor, many will say, will host the greatest press conference of all time. After that, the maps will soon be released. Very much anticipated, history made. The GOP's rigged game is over. The people retake Congress. You're welcome, America. Liberation Day. That is what many are calling it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. GCN. Fucking brilliant. Gavin Newsom, one word, Kofifi. Beautiful. Another one, final warning, Donald Trump, again in all caps. Final warning, Donald Trump, maybe the most important warning in history. Stop cheating or California will redraw the maps, and guess who will announce it this week? Gavin Newsom. Many say the most loved and handsome governor and a very powerful team. Don't make us do it. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And another one, Donald Taco Trump, as many call him, missed the deadline. California will now draw new, more beautiful maps. They will be historic as they will end the Trump presidency. Dems take back the House. Big press conference this week with powerful Dems and Gavin Newsom, your favorite governor. That will be devastating for MAGA. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Gavin Newsom. And another one, when Speaker Little Man Johnson is standing in the unemployment line, he can thank Donald Taco J. Trump. Trump missed a simple deadline, something he has often done with his many failed businesses. Now California will fire him with new, more beautiful maps. Highly anticipated. Historic press conference with your favorite governor, Gavin Christopher Newsom. Thank you for your attention to this matter. One more. Huge historic event, Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. This was last week. Press conference with Gavin Christopher Newsom and strong Dems. Democrats will destroy Greg Abbott's totally rigged maps. Tremendous work is being done. Donald Trump, the criminal president, get ready for the most beautiful payback you've ever seen. Could be the worst day of your life as your presidency ends. Dems retake Congress. America will be liberated. Liberation Day, many are calling it. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Gavin Newsom. That is how you do it. At your own game. And you know what's wild? What's really, really wild is the echo chamber on the right is too stupid to know that they're getting trolled. Here's an example. Fox does not know what to do.
Newsom, meantime, posting this on X, Liz, using all capitals, of course, trying to mock Trump, use Trump style. He's been doing this for a while now. He says, quoting, Trump just fled the podium with Putin. No questions, nothing. Total low energy. The man looked like he'd just eaten 3 buckets of KFC with Vlad. Admit it, Donnie J. You're terrified because this was the worst week of your life because of me, Gavin C. Newsom. I think he's trying to be funny. I don't know what he's trying to do, but it comes across as childish. And
exactly. My guy, you walked into the point. You literally walked into the fucking point.
And you're the governor of the biggest state in the union.
Yeah, he's responding to the president of the United States, dude.
What are you doing?
Honestly, I feel like he's trying so hard to be Trump, but he's coming off like Kanye West. He seems absolutely insane.
Fox News.
I need a good laugh. Just listen to the beginning of this again. This is just fucking brilliant. Oh my God.
Newsom, meantime, posting this on X, Liz, using all capitals, of course, trying to mock Trump, use Trump style. He's been doing this for a while now. He says, quoting, Trump just fled the podium with Putin. No questions, nothing. Total low energy. The man looked like he'd just eaten 3 buckets of KFC with Vlad. Admit it, Donnie J. You're terrified because this was the worst week of your life because of me, Gavin C. Newsom. I think he's trying to be funny. I don't know what he's trying to do, but it comes across as childish. And you're the governor of the biggest state in the union. What are you doing?
Honestly, I feel like he's trying so hard to be Trump, but he's coming off like Kanye West. He seems absolutely insane.
That is literally the point. He is showing how unbelievably childish, unhinged, mentally, in cognitive decline that the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing, fraudulent convicted felon named on the list predator is. It is amazing. And I fucking love it. And I want more of it because it's going to unhinge him even more by hitting him where it hurts. Many will say the most handsome governor. Many will say the strongest maps. Many will say the most beautiful maps. He is literally giving it to him right in his own fascist face. And I fucking love it. And I want more of it. So Gavin for the win. Okay. Have I done this one? Played that one. Okay. There's some new polling that came out from Ipsos and Gallup. They asked a simple question. The question was, a poll done, I'm sorry, this was done by Leger, L-E-G-E-R, my bad. L-E-G-E-R, which has been a opinion polling company. They've been working with the EU, with Canada, the US for a very long time. Take it for what it's worth, but they've got a pretty good score ranking on their polling. It says, if Donald Trump was officially implicated in the Schmepstein trafficking activities, would this make you more likely to vote for another party, or would it not affect your vote for Donald Trump? 47% of Republicans said they would still vote for him. If implicated, if literally implicated, 47% of Republicans said they would still vote for him. 27%, I would be more likely to vote for another party. 26%, not sure. So that's 70% that are either would still vote or are not sure. The party that wants to protect kids. The moral majority. The purity testers. The ones who care about family values. The ones who just feel like Donald Trump is a Christian man. The ones that really care about the sanctity of their communities. The ones that are concerned about violence against women in bathrooms. Those people who are so just absolutely want to make sure that we're protecting the unborn. Again, the question is, if Mr. Trump was officially implicated in the Schmepstein trafficking activities, would this make you more likely to vote for another party, or would it not affect your vote? And 47% said they wouldn't change their mind. So sweet of you. I'm glad you care so much. You guys are clowns. Some of the most despicable people I've ever seen. Speaking of that, here's a little sound for you. The evolution of Mr. Trump. This goes back to 2015 in regard to Schmepstein. Good morning. How you doing? Love you too. Sorry. One more week of vacation in our house. All right, here you go.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was...
This is 2015.
Really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I mean, people in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. I was not, a long time ago. I'd say maybe 15 years. I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would. Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking,
We have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
And don't forget, just a couple weeks ago, he said he never had the privilege of going to that cesspool. That's cool. Yeah, I think privilege when I think cesspool. That's the first thing that pops into my mind, you know. But again, that's nothing to see here, right, Macca? Because you obviously don't, you would never support, actually 47% of you would. In fact, it's almost 70% of you either definitely would support him if he was implicated or are not sure if you still would. So Mega, couple things. You can do me a couple of solids. One, don't ever tell me that you're a patriot ever again, because you've lost that argument officially. You lost it on January 6th. You've officially lost it now because you support having the military roll out the red carpet for this traitor and war criminal. That's one. Two, don't ever tell me that you care about the sanctity and safety of women and children, because 47% of you said even if he was implicated, you would still support it. And three, you're fucking stupid. There you go. Have a good day. I just want to remind people again who the president of our United States is. It's this guy.
I hear these poor fools talking about global warming. They don't call it that anymore. They call it climate change because, you know, some parts of the planet are cooling and warming. It didn't work. So they finally got it right. They call it, they just call it climate change. They used to call it global warming. You know, years ago, they used to call it global cooling. In the 1920s, they thought the planet was going to freeze. Now they think the planet's going to burn up. And we're still waiting for the 12 years. You know, we're down almost to the end of the 12-year period. You understand that, where these lunatics that know nothing, they predict, they said, we have 12 years to live. And people didn't have babies because they said, we only have another. No, it's so crazy. But the problem isn't the fact that the oceans in 500 years will raise a quarter of an inch. The problem is nuclear weapons. It's nuclear warming. And these poor fools talk about global warming all the time. You know, the planet's going to global warm to a point where the oceans will rise an eighth of an inch in 355 years. You know, they have no idea what's going to happen to weather.
What? But tell us again about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Tell us again about how just, you know, he don't forget, he looked directly into the sun when we had the eclipse without glasses on. Nothing to see here, though. It's totally fine. It's just a coincidence that he's that stupid. Nothing to see at all. And then back to this. This was a moment last week with Beavis and Butthead. I mean, Don Jr. and Eric, when they were on. See, here's the thing. When you are media training, and I'm going to bring Amira Barger back at some point because she's fabulous. I remember that day that she joined us and she talked about her background in media training, and I was smitten by herself. But as someone who was trained in media and also someone who does media training, there are certain things that you do. There are certain people that you put in front of a microphone. There's certain people that you don't. Or when you are going to be putting one of your marks in front of a camera, you make sure that there are certain things that they stay away from. So there's been a lot of questions about the credibility regarding the financial endeavors of the Trump family, specifically about their blatant corruption that's right in front of us every single day. So you put Eric and Don Jr. on the couch at Fox and you just let them speak, and then they come up with shit like this.
To this, and all of you, critics are saying, hey, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. The New Yorker, for example, says the number. How much is Trump pocketing off the presidency? Axios. President Trump and his family stand to net $3.4 billion by the end of the second term. David Kirkpatrick reports for the New Yorker in a piece today the number of why it matters. No U.S. president has monetized the highest off in the land quite like this. Eric, your answer to those headlines.
Brian, it's infuriating. We had nowhere to go. Capital One stripped 300 bank accounts from me.
Okay. First of all, didn't address the question, just said Capital One stripped 300 bank accounts from you? 300? 300. Okay.
300 in the middle of the night. They sent us a letter after doing business for 20-something years. All your bank accounts for golf courses and condominium buildings and hotels, they're all gone in the middle of the night. I mean, how do you pay your taxes? How do you pay your employees? This happened across the board. It happened with JP Morgan Chase. It happened with Bank of America. It happened with First Republic. And this wasn't just happening to the Trumps, people with a lot of zeros on the end. This was happening to conservatives all over the country. We didn't have a damn choice.
I don't notice them talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars.
We didn't have a choice? Okay.
We had to spend fighting lawfare. That doesn't matter, right? That was all nonsense, right? Russia, you name it. Impeachment 1, hoax 2, 3, 4, 5, infinity. No one talks about that. They weaponized the entire full force of the United States government against our family. And unlike all the other people who'd served as a presidency before, basically since our founding fathers, Trump was the only guy that was actually a businessman before that. Are we supposed to stop running our businesses?
Yes, you are when you assume the presidency. Yes, you are.
Are we supposed to stop doing anything? He's not involved in these things.
You notice that they didn't address the fact that they're going to enrich themselves to the tune of billions of dollars. But what the right wants to hold, President Trump donating his salary. He's so fucking generous. What about the $3 billion that is crypto? Oh, that's fake news. He's a businessman. Doesn't he have a right to earn money? Well, actually, no. You're supposed to divest from all your holdings while you're the presidency. Yeah, that divest shit, that's fucking woke. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Did you divest? I don't have anything to divest from, sir, but he's supposed to. What? That don't matter. He's a businessman. Jesus. What? And, should we get some baby bottles in the chat for Don and Eric? What are we supposed to do? They're coming after our money. I mean, we know we've got a history of corruption and crimes. What are we supposed to do? Everybody's out to get us. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I'm so nervous. They took our accounts in the middle of the night. Maybe we've done something wrong. It's hard to tell, though. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Well, good morning. Hey now. Hello there.
That's the wrong sound. Wait a minute. Sorry, I gave you the wrong one.
Hello there.
There you go. Sorry.
Again, one fucking job. You're killing me, Smalls.
Seriously, you're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. Exactly.
Okay. That sound bite.
Right?
300 accounts. I know that sounds kind of crazy, right? Given the amount of businesses that they had, the only way I could conceive of them having 300 accounts is if they're merchant accounts, meaning processing, right? So swiping cards at the front desk, swiping cards at the right. So they could have had a merchant relationship with Capital One.
One quick second. Rainy Ray, thank you so very, very much. Rainy, you're so sweet. Every single day, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for your kind donation. I appreciate you very, very much. Thank you, Rainy. Sorry, buddy.
No, donations are important. And everybody should donate something to Steve. He'll take chocolate chip cookies, autographs.
Heavy petting.
Small children, puppies, kittens.
No.
Steve will take just about anything.
No. Nope.
I'm sorry. That was me being a dick. I apologize. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't happen in the middle of the night. You know how I know it doesn't happen in the middle of the night? People do this thing in the middle of the night. It's called sleeping. Right? It's not like there's a thing. However, if somebody had that many accounts and they were shut down, I suspect there are 3 reasons, right? One would be they exceeded the amount of chargebacks they were allowed, which means there was probably a lot of fraud afoot. That's neither positive nor negative for or against a particular business. The use of the accounts was not as described when the accounts were opened, the more likely scenario. Or 3, they had received plenty of notifications that they weren't using the accounts as described, and were basically told that they were going to shut the accounts down if they didn't do X, Y, or Z. Given the shiftiness of that family and the lack of credit worthiness, right? Which again is how we know they're not actually billionaires, right? They're not liquid. They're leveraged. They owe money on everything, right?
Everything.
They borrow, claim to be a billionaire, and then bankrupt companies and don't pay back their loans, which is why no financial institution in the United States wants to deal with them, right? So they've got that going on. But the funniest thing, by the way, of any trolling that has been going on is what you described Gavin Newsom doing the last 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And
Epic.
and here's what I love. I don't know if you got any of the sound or saw any of the sound when he was with Mayor Bass down here in Los Angeles holding the press conference in which ICE showed up to try to intimidate him. He fucking eviscerated Trump.
Oh yeah.
Like on the news talking about what a small man-child he is, what a petulant child he is, what a small human being he is. And listen, I get it. There are a lot of people on the left that don't like Newsom because he said some pretty untoward things with regard to the trans community. I get it, right? I would just like to warn people, once again, that people can redeem themselves, but more importantly, please, please, please don't fall into the purity test. Don't go down that road. Don't not support the one guy that's out there doing the work. He and Beto right now are the only two possible candidates. And I don't even know if Gavin's going to run, right? He just may be really enjoying himself. He certainly could be a lot more successful without being the president, quite frankly, right? Like he doesn't need to be the president. From a financial standpoint, he doesn't need the money, but also from a career perspective, I don't necessarily know if being the president of the United States after being the governor of California is a step up or a step down. Honestly.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yep.
Kind of like being the governor of New York or Illinois, right? There are certain states that just have such large populations, even to some extent, the governor of Texas. I don't know if being the governor of Texas is a step up or step down. Now, for the individual, that's a different story, right? I'm just talking about the position itself. I really hope that people get that there's a limited number of folks that are out there doing stuff. And you know what's interesting? It's not any of the DNC members. It's not any of the elected Democrat officials. Right? Nope. Schumer once again sent a strongly worded letter. Like, what the fuck, Chuck? Like, really? Thanks, that's the best you got? Right? Oh, gee.
Appreciate that, Chuck. Yeah.
I sent a strongly worded letter. Like, dude.
I know.
Okay. Now, when the founding fathers did it, they didn't have fucking email, and they only wrote to each other. So they could do that. But
with a quill pen. Yeah.
First of all, let's just think about that. Like, have you ever picked one up and looked at it? I did once, and I was like, yeah, nah. I'm not going to try
like
this.
To scratch everything. But you're right. I mean, and somebody said, I mean, I think James Tallarico has shown up in many right wing spaces calling them out. Pete Buttigieg has been doing it for a long while, right? So there are other people, but it's just the level of pettiness at which Gavin is at, which is amazing. And then the sound that I played from Fox News saying he's acting like insane, like he's a child, like exactly.
Oh.
That's exactly why he's doing it. That is exactly the reason why he's doing it, because it shows people how unbelievably childish and petty it is. And it's effective because it's getting under Trump's skin big time.
Right. And also, when they acknowledge that he's trying to be like Trump, and then they walk into the point and then they quickly pivot, because I think in that moment they realized that they had walked into the point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, The phrase is not, he's using all capitals. No, those would be things of a state. He's using capital letters or all caps would be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's Fox News. I don't expect them to know much.
Yeah, they don't know shit.
I really want us to also, this is super important. Like, I don't know if people noticed over the weekend. I'm sure everyone in the chat did because you have the smartest chat on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the European leadership wants to come and stand in Zelensky's corner while meeting with Trump.
Absolutely.
What does that tell you? Right? MAGA, what does that tell you? I know you can get there. I know you can figure this out. It literally means world leaders don't trust or like Donald Trump, and they are sick and tired of him getting involved in something that has nothing to do with him. And he has no right to be negotiating at all. It's not his thing to negotiate. And also, could we fucking stop believing that Trump knows how to make a deal? Can we please?
On that point, this is a golden nugget of sound that I found. In Trump's mind, which he respects, in his opinion, which he respects. Here you go. This is crazy. You're gonna laugh about this one. This is about his economic chops. Here you go.
A big study the other day, and they called all of the great intellects and the great economists and all of the great everything, and it was 71, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman that happens to be very smart. 69 people got it wrong, and the Fed got it wrong, more wrong than anybody. And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think.
First of all, hold on. He literally thinks a think tank is a building where people just go and think. Hold on. Sorry, I gotta play this from the top again. Holy shit.
A big study the other day, and they called all of the great intellects and the great economists and all of the great everything, and it was 71, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman that happens to be very smart. 69 people got it wrong, and the Fed got it wrong, more wrong than anybody. And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think. And it's really not thinking; it's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have.
I'd be like, hello, listen, I don't really have a spot to go and think now. Is there room in the think tank where I can just come in and think? Because I hear that this is where all the 69 other people that got shit wrong, and Donald Trump, who's as dumb as a post, got it right. So is that where I go? Do I get smarter?
I mean, people go to a bathhouse to take a bath. Why can't people go to a building to think?
Just like it's a thing. They only thinks a think tank is like a building where people go and think.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, right?
Sorry. Oh my god.
What kind of would their furniture be made of? Fine mahogany leather.
Corinthian
leather, right? Thank you. Mahogany wood paneling and Corinthian leather. First of all,
I can't get past the think tank. Never mind the beginning of his statement was, other great intellects, myself and some other smart guy who I'm not going to name, we're the only ones who got it right because we spent some time in the think tank. I was in room number 14 in the think tank.
Oh. What is the thing they got wrong? I want to know what the thing is they all got wrong.
It's like an episode of Blue's Clues. The thinking chair.
First of all, hats off to Steve in the thinking chair. And blue.
I am Steve.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to lose my professionalism here, but that is like, we've heard some dumbass shit come out of his mouth before, but that one, can we play it one more time? I'm sorry.
They did a big study the other day, and they called all of the great intellects and the great economists and all of the great everything, and they
all the great everything.
It was 71, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman that happens to be very smart.
Some other guy who happens to be very smart. Just some other guy.
69 people got it wrong, and the Fed got it wrong, more wrong than anybody.
Yeah, the Fed got it wrong. The people who are experts in this, the actual experts, they got it wrong. Cool.
And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think. And it's really not thinking; it's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have.
Wait. Hold on. Rewind just a little bit. Did he say it's literally not thinking, but it's a combination of thinking and something else?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, shit. I got the restriction. Damn it. I thought I was going to make it to the whole day. Who the fuck knows? Victoria, I hope you haven't been too busy this morning. Were you spending some time in the think tank?
Yes. I don't know if you know this. We share it with the Orange Cat Collective and their single brain cell.
Oh, beautiful. New merch suggestion for the merch store. Yes, Sam. Yes. I'm not going to tell anybody so we can make it. Yes. We need that. Yes. Hold on. Wait.
Samsung.
Think tank.
Samsung.
Think tank.
Samsung.
Think tank.
Tim Apple.
Oh my God.
Someone should convince
Hi, Victoria.
him that,
how are you?
Hi. Good morning. Someone should convince him that think tanks are those little like fish bowls in university campuses, like in the library, and then he'll stay away from them. Because, universities is where you catch liberalism.
Now, he literally thinks that a think tank is a building where people go and think.
Well,
I mean, you can think in a building. You know where I do some of my best thinking is on the back of my motorcycle. That's where I do some of my best thinking. Or if I'm fishing,
going somewhere else.
or if I'm out walking the dog. Well, I'm not thinking there. I'm just in the moment in those moments. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Love it. No, I keep waiting for the moment where like, no, that's stupid enough that everyone's gonna be like, no, that's stupid, and we just the bar keeps going lower for what is stupid. Oh, Stephen's in the chat.
Like, I mean, there's what we often find is our friends on the right who will just, they will put themselves in every position imaginable, positions that are not fun, but more painful. They will do whatever they can to try to justify the things that come out of his mouth. But here's the problem is that many of them probably think the same thing, that a think tank is a building. Now leasing think tanks.
Hey, look.
Oh my God.
I don't know. This feels like a business venture that won't fail at all.
No. Nope. It's not going to fail at all. The Trump branded think tanks where some of the great minds gather. Yeah.
I think we should make sure it's fully stocked with ketchup. Pictures of Gavin Newsom, because we know that Gavin is trolling him, and we love that for Gavin.
We sure do.
What else really just gets under his skin? Really, like, just put like words in there of like release the files. Jesus, cat.
Oh my God.
Hello, kitty cats.
She's got opinions, guys. Oh, Obama.
Don't we all?
Yeah, and Biden. definitely those things. Maybe
And
a picture of Clinton.
Right. I just want to remind people of a few things again as we're talking about this, is that during when Russia illegally invaded Ukraine, within months of that happening, Joe Biden, under the cover of darkness, without a lot of fanfare, with a lot of any publicity at all, flew to Germany, then got on a train and flew 9.5 hours across Europe to Kyiv to meet with President Zelensky in support of one of our allies and friends as they were being invaded illegally by the war criminal. And this guy is doing the stroke. And this guy clapped. Daddy's home. I remember when my kids were little, when I would come home from work, they'd run out and greet me. It was like the greatest thing ever. That's what it must have been like for him while he was sitting at the think tank, pondering his next move. What the hell is wrong with people? The think tank. They used to call it global cooling, and the windmills and the magnets and the whales. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
You're a genius.
Nothing to see here, though. Exactly. I'll bring up Auntie Biscuit. Holy shit, that made me laugh.
Fox, how are you doing?
Wow. Hi, Biscuit. How are you today?
Yeah, very stressed out with what's happening, as you can imagine, between Zelensky, Trump, and obviously the European leaders. Just thought I'd let you know, in case you haven't already heard, that it is so bad now that we have Russian armor spouting US flags. They've literally got American flags flying side by side on Russian armor at the front lines, deliberately taunting the Ukrainians. Now, can I just ask, when exactly did the United States of America decide that it was going to side with Russia?
That's a very good question.
I'm sure there's probably maybe like 50 or 60 veterans down there from the United States right now watching your stream, and I want to ask every veteran that's there, because I work for the Ministry of Defence here in the United Kingdom. We have been allies for a long time. I have had brothers and sisters unalive in Afghanistan and Iraq and numerous other places, that, whilst in support of the United States and your efforts, when did your government and when did your people decide to support Russia? Because this is just, to me, a utter betrayal of everything that we have stood for and built up for, well, since World War II. Basically for over 85 years. We have built up, we have maintained the global peace in a way that has meant that we haven't had the mass global conflict, and this is just going to push us towards that global conflict, that this could be the final straw.
So, Auntie, I think the situation, and I'm not saying that what you're sharing is not accurate, but we know that Russia TV and Russia media is sharing those images. So we have to kind of take that carefully. Because that's the source of this, right? So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but as we are,
it's been verified by Ukrainian and independent media outlets and sources in Europe.
Okay, so the video shared by Ann Applebaum is legitimate video from RT, Russian state propaganda outlet. The video shows a Russian military vehicle in Ukraine flying both Russian and American flags, which is part of a disinformation campaign. This is confirmed by the context provided in the X post and related web results, indicating that RT, known for spreading propaganda, released this video as part of their narrative strategy. The video's authenticity as being shared by RT is not in question. Rather, its content is designed to manipulate perceptions and escalate tensions by suggesting U.S. involvement in the conflict.
Yeah, I get that, but it's the fact that what Trump is trying to do is basically a practical surrender of Ukraine. There is nothing in anything that Trump is doing that ultimately benefits Ukraine. It puts Ukraine back into other people's pockets, with about 23% of the Ukrainian territory of Ukraine. In fact, it's going to be more like 25 when you include the DMZ. 25% of that country will be in Russia's hands permanently. All of the mineral-rich areas will be in Russian hands, apart from small pockets, which will be under effectively American influence. And it's a carve-up. They've been told they won't be allowed to join NATO. It'll cause a major headache if Ukraine wants to join the EU because of the Treaty of Lisbon, specifically Article 47, subsection 2, which is a mutual defence and aid clause, which prohibits those that join the European bloc to be a proxy of anybody else at the time.
We'll keep an eye on it. I mean, it is. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Auntie. We're going to dig in a little bit deeper just to confirm. I can see the video. It does look like, again, we have to consider the source, but it does look like the video of a Russian armored vehicle with both the Russian flag and the American flag. I would ask the MAGA patriots how you feel about that. But thank you for jumping in today, Auntie. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for being here.
Look after yourself.
You got it. Talk to you later. There was a post from the president this morning, dated 6:44 a.m. Eastern time. I'm totally convinced that if Russia raised their hands and said, we give up, we concede, we surrender, we will give Ukraine and the great United States of America, the most revered, respected, and powerful of all countries ever, Moscow and St. Petersburg and everything surrounding them for 1,000 miles, the fake news media and their Democratic partners would say that this was a bad, humiliating day for Donald J. Trump, one of the worst days in the history of our country. But that's why they are the fake news and the badly failing radical left Democrats. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Oh my God. So here's the story from, as reported from, this is from the Telegraph. A Russian armored vehicle has been shown on state media proudly flying an American flag on the battlefield in an apparent taunt to Ukraine. The video shows a captured U.S.-supplied M113 armored personnel carrier, both bearing the U.S. and Russian flags near the front line in Ukraine's southeast, according to pro-Kremlin channels. It's not clear when the verified video was taken. However, the timing of its appearance is notable. Given what happened on Friday, Mr. Trump has subsequently sided with Russian leader over a number of key demands, including the Ukraine should abandon its ambitions to join NATO, and it should not try to reclaim Crimea. The U.S. president is also believed to support Putin's idea that Ukraine surrender the mineral-rich Donbass, including parts that Russia does not occupy, in order to bring a swift resolution to the war. The state-owned Russian TV, RT Media broadcaster said the vehicle was rushing into battle near the village of Mala Takhmachka in the partially occupied Ukrainian region of Zaporizhzhia, one of the 4 regions Putin has tried to demand complete control over in peace talks. The M113, which appears to be covered in an anti-drone cage, was repaired and revived and is now being used to carry out combat missions by the 70th Motorized Rifle Regiment, RT wrote alongside the clip. Andriy Yermak, Volodymyr Zelensky's chief aide, accused Russia of using the symbols of the U.S. in their own terrorist war of aggression. He called the display of the U.S. flag utter arrogance. Earlier, Ukrainian forces reported destroying a Russian captured M113 armored vehicle during fighting in the Donetsk. The footage of the U.S. flag has emerged at a critical time for peace negotiations, as Mr. Zelensky, of course, visits the White House today. On Sunday night, Mr. Trump, who dropped his insistence on a ceasefire in favor of a final peace meeting, told Mr. Zelensky that he could almost immediately end Russia's war on Ukraine if he abandons his NATO ambitions and agrees not to reclaim Crimea. Again, MAGA patriots. MAGA patriots. Are you out there? You simps. Are you out there? Are you paying attention? Are you comfortable with your brother? What if it was your children, MAGA patriots, in this photograph, in this lovely piece of Russian propaganda that the Russian television, that RT and Russian citizens are celebrating? The United States military, right there, That is the U.S. military on their knees, tacking down a red carpet for the war criminal. Imagine that if that were one of your children, MAGA patriots. Would you be proud? Proud of their service, sure, but that? How do you feel about that picture, Obi?
Well, I got two things to say about that. One, let's not fixate on the personnel that were asked to do it, right?
Yeah, it's not them. I get they're following orders. I get that.
No, I just let me finish this out, right? I don't want to talk about them being on their knees or tacking down the red carpet. I want to focus all of my anger at the motherfucker that made them do that.
Exactly.
Because that's fucking disgusting.
Exactly. Wouldn't be surprised if that came down from command and control at the top. Would not be surprised one bit. There you go, MAGA patriots. There you go. Ordering servicemen and women to tack down the flag, to tack down the red carpet for the war criminal. You guys okay with that? You totally okay with that? Or is it just a fake? This is just fake news. Well, we saw the video. We actually saw it. So is that all doctored? Is that just manipulated too? We're going to fire the person who did this, right? Yeah, their commanding officer should be ashamed. No doubt about it. That's disgusting. That is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting to see. But that's fine. Nothing to see here. Here's a little bit more sound. This is from Steve Witkoff. He is the emissary. He's the guy, by the way. Steve Witkoff was in the Kremlin when the first signal leak happened. Steve Witkoff has a real estate background. He doesn't know jack shit about foreign policy. He does not talk about incompetent. He doesn't know a damn thing. So just listen to this, trying to scramble out of this bullshit, because he, again, finds himself in a really prickly situation.
The president had said numerous times, and he said in the past that he wants a ceasefire.
Being interviewed on Fox, by the way, a safe space.
And he was hoping to get one going in. Here's what he said when he was asked just days ago about what would happen.
Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences?
There will be consequences.
Yes, they will. No, they don't. No, they won't. And you're not pushing for it. So shut up.
Tariffs? There will be. I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences. Yes.
You know, he told Bret Baier on the plane that he would be very unhappy if he came away from this without a ceasefire. So how do you call this a win if you didn't get that?
Shannon, a ceasefire, as you know, is a condition precedent, generally speaking, before a peace deal. So in that context, the president has always talked about a ceasefire until he made a lot of different wins in this meeting and began to realize that we could be talking about a peace deal.
One more time.
He came away from this without a ceasefire. So how do you call this a win if you didn't get that?
Shannon, a ceasefire, as you know, is a condition precedent, generally speaking, before a peace deal. So in that context, the president has always talked about a ceasefire until he made a lot of different wins in this meeting and began to realize that we could be talking about a peace deal. What? The ultimate deal here is a peace deal. And we were talking about much more robust security.
What was that?
What did he just say?
He didn't say a damn thing. Again, good for Shannon on Fox saying, how do you call this a win? If the goal was to get a ceasefire, how do you call it a win? And even in his own words, don't forget, he went into this telling his followers, I can end the war in 24 hours. We know the sound. We know the whole story. He went into this just last week saying, I'm going to cut away where there'll be a ceasefire. We can't move forward, blah, fucking blah. The only thing that I agree with the president on is that I want the war to stop. I think we all do. I think we all do. We all want it to stop. But the Trump administration are not the ones to get this done. They're just not. They are not. People are like, well, why didn't Biden get it done? Okay, Biden said, you want the war to end, Vlad? Get the fuck out of Ukraine. And until you do, they put sanctions in. They increased sanctions. They funded Ukraine. They said, you leave. You want to have a conversation about when the end of the war? You leave. That's what you do. What has Trump done? He's not done a damn thing to call out Russia. Nothing. Every single month since he took office, he has threatened sanctions. Every single month. And every time, Vlad has just tipped the bottle of vodka and said, fuck you. And Trump has done nothing. Not a damn thing.
He's Chuck Schumered a lot of letters.
Yeah, he has done that. He's written strongly worded Truth Social posts, including the one that I just read about, the left wouldn't be happy if we gave Ukraine, Moscow, and Leningrad. Come on.
What does the Russian government have on Trump?
They got a lot.
I used to think it was just like a funny conspiracy theory, but I think, well, to your point, I think there's a whole bunch of financial crimes that they could report on. Yep. And I think he's really, really worried about that.
Agreed. I agree. Yep. I totally agree. All right. I think I've got one more piece of sound that I have not played yet. There's this one. This was going into the meeting last week. This was from the Kennedy Center. First of all, when he wants to give himself an award, which is like the full-on narcissist move. But here you go.
Hi, sir. There's new reporting that the Russians have hacked into some computer systems that manage U.S. federal court documents. I wonder if you've seen this reporting and if you plan to bring it up with Putin when you see him later in the week.
I guess I could. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? They hack in. That's what they do. They're good at it. We're good at it. We're actually better at it. But no, I have heard about it.
Can you imagine, can you imagine if Bush said, hearing about plans to do what they did to the Trade Center and said, yeah, are you surprised? That's what they do. What? Are you going to call them out? Yeah, it's fine. They do it. We do it too. No big deal.
Yeah.
What? I mean, how far we have fallen because of this guy. And even in the right-wing spaces, and I do not recommend it for your mental health friends, but if you're going through there, the amount that the people who support him will do to continue to try to justify their support is mind-boggling. Someone this morning pushing back and saying, well, again, that's not the situation here. The situation is this. What about the promises, the threats of taking over the Donbass? And they're like, that never happened. And then they read the reporting, that's fake news. So why did he roll out the red carpet for the war criminal? Putin's not a war criminal. Yes, he is. Why wasn't he arrested? Because the ICC doesn't recognize it. That means he's not a war criminal. No, he is. If he went to any one of these other countries, he would have been arrested. Well, that's fake news. It's just, okay. So now that we have the PPI information, the producer price index, more inflation there connected to the BLS, is that also fake? Is that more justification to fire more people? And this is why I talk about this often, about my real concern about the propagandizing of the American public. Because that's what happens. That's what's happened. And I don't know how we come back from this, friends. Because we're all going to be in a position. We're all going to be in this position where, listen, if there's a situation with data, I've got a friend who lives in the communist realm of California who can help me navigate through money and help me navigate through the economy and statistics and shit like that. So I feel good. But the rest of us, where do we get the information from? What are we supposed to believe? Literally, what are we supposed to believe? And that is by design. I remember the conversation we had last week with somebody trying to justify the firing. They said fraud, they said cooking the books, and they said suspicious. And I kept challenging it to say, you can't say fraud because fraud implies intent. Cooking the books implies intent. Suspicious would imply intent. And you were on the panel with me. And it's just like, and that person was just like, well, don't you agree that the data could be fixed? I'm like, no, I don't agree that the data could be fixed. I agree that we may have an opportunity to fix how we do data collection, but you're implying fraud. And you want to justify firing somebody because you're implying fraud. How are we ever going to navigate through this? I don't know. I don't know. I like to think that I think 4 or 5 steps ahead, but in this one, I don't know.
Well, let me give you another example. I was on Doug's Live yesterday, and this guy was trying to explain to me that the projects
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you, Lauren. Thank you very much.
Hey, Lauren, way to step up. Now, everybody be like Lauren. Don't be like Donald J. Trump. Be like Lauren. Step up. Donate. Send some cookies, puppies, kittens, piglets, whatever. Doesn't matter. It would be fun if you ended up with like a potbelly pig or something like that.
Yeah, if anybody wants to give me a hand, I'd appreciate that.
Hey now.
Yes.
Sorry.
Hey now. So he was trying to tell me that the reason why Apple was spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on new factories was because of Trump. And I said, well, wait a minute. How can that be? It takes probably 18 months to 2 years before you can get that capital set aside, get it approved, have the board do all this stuff, right? Like, you just don't go to Houston and say, oh, I'm going to build an AI plant because Trump is president. Like, but they don't get it, right? They don't even understand the fundamentals of the fact that the Chips and Science Act helped spur all this stuff. And that just because Tim Apple, that was on purpose, just because Tim Apple and his cousin Sam Sung go to see President Trump doesn't mean that that's
Sam
why.
Sung.
Dude, first of all, that was awesome. That's not the reason why it happened, right? And I even told the guy, I'm like, business leaders have realized if they pretend to genuflect near Trump, he shuts up, right? And here was my question for him that he couldn't answer, and most MAGA can't. If Trump was still going to be holding Apple accountable, after Tim Cook was like, hey, I'm just going to tell the president that all of the stuff that we've already approved is this investment we're going to make in America, like Japan did, right? If Trump was really going to go after Apple as opposed to having his ass kissed, why is it no one can point to the last time he talked about tariffing Apple as a corporation because they didn't build their phones in the United States? It's not about the tariffs. It's not about American jobs. It's not about manufacturing. It's about kissing his ass. If you go and kiss his ass, he forgets everything that he said he was going to do, right? But this is MAGA's problem, is they can't think outside of sound bites, right?
You know
because
what?
they don't want to.
That point you just made is exactly what happened in Alaska when Putin came out at the end of the press conference and said, Mr. Trump, if you had won presidency in 2020, I would not have invaded Ukraine. That is kissing his ass.
Yeah.
Because they know that if he primes the pump, he's going to get whatever he wants. And his base will gobble it the fuck up.
Yeah,
now, I've already seen it. See that? See what Putin said? Trump was right. You see that? That this is what propaganda does. And I can tell you every single day, MAGA, that you guys are just being conned every single day. And I don't enjoy sitting up here calling you all stupid, but give me a break. You're going to take the word of he knows what he's been saying. He's been running around saying that for years. It never would have happened if I was a presidency. So what does he do? He strokes the ego and gets what, to Obi's point, he'll get whatever he wants from this guy as long as he gives him a little tug, little rub and tug. It's what he wants. It's all he cares about. His ego. It's all he gives a shit about. His ego in his pocket. That's it. That's it. And it worked like a fucking charm. So now we have the actual hero. President Zelensky, along with other European leaders showing up today in support of that, in defending democracy. Because remember, we started the show, what does Putin want? Putin wants the reunification of the USSR. He wants the old Soviet Union. He doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. He certainly doesn't want Ukraine to be part of the EU. What does Zelensky wants? He wants democracy. He wants to join the EU. He wants to join NATO. What does Trump want? Fucking money and his reputation. It's all he gives a fuck about. So if Putin says the only way I will settle this war is if Ukraine agrees to give up that territory. Oh, and by the way, Donald, you look great in that red tie. Zelensky, the only way to settle the war is for you to give up your land because Putin said something nice about me. That's it. That's it. That's the ball. That's the ball game. That's the whole ball game. Obi, final thoughts, sir.
Doing something requires nothing. And we keep talking about this, right? And as I do more of these community events, like I was super stoked to participate in yesterday, I realized that the simple things I don't think I ever talk about enough, right? Like, as an example, somebody said thank you because I literally, all I did, this was like super simple, right? They pulled up, they had kids, right? I got to the door, I opened the door, I kind of kept the kids close, right? So they didn't run off because there was a kid zone, and you know, kids see kid zone, and that's it. It's over, right? Like one track minds. The woman, I don't know, mom or not, doesn't matter, simply said, "Thank you for being aware." And I thought, oh, right. I'm just trying to be courteous. Thank you for being aware. Maybe everyone could work on just being aware. And not self-aware, because that's none of my fucking business. That's for you to work on between you and your therapist or your best friend. But just be aware of what's going on around you. And for me, what that means is go to community events, volunteer to help out, be aware of your neighbor. What does your neighbor need? Is your neighbor struggling, right? Are you struggling? Be aware. See something, say something, do something. If you need help, come up here in the live and raise your hand and just say, man, I'm having a really shitty day. I need a bad dad joke. And we'll get Uncle Rusty to come up here and he'll give you a bad dad joke. And it'll be fun, right? More importantly, please continue to help our host. He is an awesome fucking human being and my brother, and I want to make him smile right now. We got a super positive email returned from that email that we sent to you know who about you know what. So we will talk about that later.
You're a friend. I appreciate you, pal.
Capitalism for the win.
You're an exceptional human, buddy. I appreciate you, and I love you very much. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, dude. Cheers.
Peace. Real quick, thanks, Tiff, for this. Again, BLS data. Consumer prices for back-to-school spending. This is as of this morning. The start of the school year comes with budgeting for a variety of expenses. For instance, students need books. In May 2025, the latest data available for some school-related items. Prices for educational books and supplies, such as elementary, high school, and college textbooks and reference books, were 9.4% higher than a year earlier. Students can't learn well on an empty stomach. They need food. Prices for food at elementary and secondary schools who don't offer free lunches, usually at the school cafeteria, were 3.3% higher than a year earlier. In July 2025, prices for daycare and preschool, 5.7% higher than a year earlier. Elementary and high school tuition and fees increased 3.1%, while college tuition is up 2.4%. Many families buy new clothes for their young students. Prices for boys' apparel were up 1.9% over the year, which ended in July 2025, but prices for girls' apparel decreased by 1.9%. Boys and girls' footwear prices were little changed. Prices for snacks for after school or anytime were unchanged. In comparison, the index for all items increased 2.7% from July 2024 to July 2025. The over-the-year change in consumer price index for all items has ranged from 2.3% to 3.0%. So there you go. on your back to school shopping. First of all, the cost of school lunches is big. That's massive because families depend on it. But it's okay because we're looking out for the billionaires. I don't want you guys to worry about the billionaires. I know it's tough. I understand when you're trying to buy your next jet. I get that. I totally get it. Kids don't need food. It's totally fine. Nothing to see here. But if you're bored, just go to the think tank later in the building with a big sign flashing, think tank. We have openings. Thank you guys very, very much. We're going to go raid Zeus. Tell him we said hello. Thank you all for being here today. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll be back on the backup one more day tomorrow and then back on the main as of Wednesday. Thank you, mods. Got the best mods in the business. Got the smartest chat on TikTok. I'm very grateful. I love you all very, very much. See you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock.